keep him around because they don't.
Oh, my goodness. Are you serious? You
I don't
really
think
so.
Yeah, I don't think they want to tell their fans, well, we're totally selling off parts. We're kind of going to be competitive-ish.
So if you had to bet, you think Helsley will be on the team next year?
That's my guess. I'm not as confident in that statement as I am with Arenado being gone, but I have a feeling Helsley will be here.
Oh, boy, that's what it sounded like earlier today on TMA. They think it's up in the air that Ryan Helsley gets traded this offseason. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, Martin has been spot on with some of his Cardinals predictions so far this offseason, Alex. He was one of the first that I heard that said basically like, hey, yeah, I don't think it's just like a maybe that Arenado gets dealt. I think it's likely that Arenado gets dealt. He also said that he thinks that Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras would be back. That was before we got the reports from Katie Woo or Derek Gould that those two would likely be back this upcoming season. And now he's saying, I think it's likely that Helsley is back in 2025. Alex, I've kind of wondered openly if this would end up being the case. There's a lot of closers that are potentially available this offseason, both via free agency and on the trade market. It's very hard to find a comparable situation where an all-star caliber closer heading into his walk year gets traded going into that walk year and not at the deadline. Typically what you see is teams will hold on to these guys, and you see them dealt at the trade deadline when there is more demand for a player like Helsley for the stretch run, not for the entirety of the season, because that's really the value is, hey, I need this guy in October. I don't really care what he gives me in April or May. Yes, those wins matter, but I'm not going to deploy him in the same way. I also wonder aloud, similarly to what you just heard there from Martin Kilcoyne, are the Cardinals really going to do this offseason with Ryan Helsley? I'm skeptical.
I wasn't skeptical until Martin opened his mouth because I could feel it in the air like Phil Collins that it was going to happen at some point. It made no sense for this team to keep a guy who is going to want more money after this year for a position that you could just fill with somebody in your bullpen for a team that really didn't have a whole lot of expectations for this year. The expectation was to start developing the younger players. Now, I can understand, we talked about this yesterday, the closer is kind of like the goaltender, and sometimes you need to win games close, and you got to make your younger players feel good about a win, and a closer can do that for you.
Yep. There's nothing more demoralizing than losing that win that you had secured going into the ninth inning. Nothing more demoralizing for a team.
I totally understand that, because from a hockey sense, I won't be a hypocrite. That's the point of Jordan Binnington and why I've been such a honk for him. But for a Cardinals team that's looking to redevelop their minor league system and really start investing in
tools similar to what the Blues are doing? Going through a youth movement similar to what the Blues are doing?
I guess.
Oh, do we need to make a manager change?
I think Alex just had an epiphany.
I did.
Oh my God. The Cardinals are doing the same thing that the Blues have done.
But here's the difference, I guess. And I'm going to try and defend myself because I just fell into a trap right there.
I believe in you.
I saw it in his eyes where he's realizing in the moment, oh my God, I'm arguing against myself right now.
Yeah, and this is what I do with my wife a lot. Here's the difference. We've talked a lot about how you can't trade goaltenders because there's just not a whole lot of return that comes back. We went through that trying to figure out, like, is it even worth the return of what you'd give up for a guy that can win you baseball games? You know for a fact that closers bring you in something. Now, does it bring you in a high-level type of player in the minor league system that can change your franchise? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it would benefit you a lot more than keeping a guy on your team that wins a couple of games here and there for you.
So I guess here's my question. Because, like, the Cardinals just did this at the deadline a couple of years ago where they sold off and they got all this stuff in return, right? They're just pitching. That's what they needed at the time, so that's what they went out and acquired. Got you Drew Rom.
Oh, he was so
good.
good.
Swanson, who's a double-A closer right now. He just got added to the 40, man.
He'll be great.
TK Roby, man, that guy's going to be good, except he's never healthy. Kloffenstein, who got non-tendered this year at the 40-man deadline.
Just poor roster management.
So they got all this stuff back in return for the pitchers that they traded away, including Jordan Montgomery. And the crown jewel of that stuff is a guy that T-Bone doesn't know if he's going to be on the roster next year, and Thomas Saggese.
Let's be honest. He's Luke and Baker.
Yeah, thank you.
If that's how we feel about the stuff that they got back for Jordan Montgomery, who ended up going on to being a number 2 starter in the World Series for a team that won the World Series.
Now he's one of the worst contracts in baseball, according to his new owner.
Jack Flaherty, who the following season was valued as, a prime deadline addition. and Jordan Hicks, who at the time was a pretty big-time reliever addition as well. Like, if that's what they got back for those players in tandem, do we really think that the Cardinals are going to be able to get something in return for Ryan Helsley that really changes the outlook of their future? I'm not so certain of that at all. I think it is much more likely to get that if they wait until the trade deadline. I don't know if you're going to get then, but I can at least point to something recently where a team did get something.
But you're gambling then.
And that was the Royals. The Royals traded Aroldis Chapman closer to the deadline, and in return, they got Cole Reagans, who is now their number one starter. So I can point to history right there of that's what it looks like when you do it in season. I don't have, legitimately, I do not have anything in the last decade that I can point to where a team was in this situation that the Cardinals are in and got a big return for a reliever. I don't have a history of that. So that's where I'm struggling with this is I think in theory, it's easy to say Cardinals obviously have to trade Ryan Helsley because you're going to get something of significance in return. In reality, I'm not sure that is true. I'm just not sure.
But you're gambling in that sense. And
I'm gambling either way, though.
Totally. But you're gambling in the sense to where you're gambling on the guy you're going to get in return if he's good or not. And that comes down to your talent evaluation. If you're going to try and get to the trade deadline with Ryan Helsley, you're gambling on his health. And I don't know if I want to do that if I'm the Cardinals because that's still an asset.
So if I told you that the Cardinals end up getting, I don't know, something in return that's a mid-level pitching prospect and a lottery ticket prospect for Ryan Helsley, you would rather do that now than gamble with A, the fact that Ryan Helsley's a really good pitcher and can help you win games next year, and B, that he's potentially going to be available at the trade deadline next year and you get significantly more in return. You'd rather take bird in hand than one that's out there waiting for the trade deadline.
But what if the trade deadline is the exact same situation as this offseason where you've got 5 other closers that are available? Well. I'm just not going to gamble with a piece that if he gets injured, now he's nothing for me. Because if he gets injured, other teams aren't going to, they're not going to want to pay the price of that, and then you're going to be stuck with the closer. Yeah. I would trade it now and get something and pray that my talent evaluation can understand what we're bringing in return could be good.
So I'm of two minds on this because, in my opinion, I think baseball-wise, it actually might be the correct decision to hold on to Ryan Helsley and let this thing play out. I also think the Cardinals might be better than we're giving them credit for the next year, but that's a different conversation for a different day. The conversation that I think that becomes very different is the reason why the Cardinals are doing this, according to Martin Kilcoyne, who was on with TMA earlier today. Is on TMA every day. You can hear him weekdays from.
I thought he was on every day.
Hey, not the 10 o'clock hour though. He's got stuff to do.
I heard they were having Doug Armstrong on Friday.
Hey, good for
the
them.
The explanation from Martin is where I have a fork in the road moment with the Cardinals. If you're doing this because baseball-wise it doesn't make sense to trade him right now, cool. I can totally get behind that rationale. And in fact, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're doing this because you're worried about what the fan reaction will be to you trading Ryan Helsley, that's absurd and cannot be the reason why you're justifying any decision you make this offseason. Can't be the reason why you trade Nolan Arenado. Can't be the reason why you keep Ryan Helsley. Like, do things that you think are in the best interest of your team, period. And that is what Doug Armstrong does at every turn. He goes out there, and when everybody thinks his team's tanking, he offer sheets a couple of guys. When everybody thinks that his team's in the midst of a retool, he says, I'm firing my head coach because a good one is available, and that's the best thing for my hockey club long term.
When everyone thinks that they're in a hard sell because their team is crap, he says, nope, we're going to stand pat and go win a Stanley Cup.
Exactly. So, like, Army very much is clear in what his messaging is, and then his actions follow that messaging. We'll see with the Cardinals, but that is the thing that bothered me about what I heard from Martin earlier. Not that Martin said it, but that's the mindset that the Cardinals might have is that they're potentially doing things to appease this fan base. That can't be the way you operate as a GM.
If that's the case, I take everything back that I said yesterday about how I'm believing in their blueprint, because that's absurd if you're doing something because you're worried how the fans are going to react.
And, like, if that is the case, are we not just reading the room either? Like, when they came out, they had the press conference and a press conference after the press conference and maybe even a third one there. And they said, hey, we're going to focus on our minor league development. We're going to go through this youth movement. I think Mo said at the general manager's meeting of, hey, we're not really going to put expectations on this, right? We're not really going to be out there pushing for free agents, really trying to build upon a team to contend. He didn't say not contend, but he basically said that. If you read his words, I think it was something along the lines of, hey, you know, we're willing to take a step back, take away some of this pressure. Well, okay, well, if that's the case, then what are we talking about then with this idea of, oh, well, we got to keep our fans happy? No, the fans were receptive to that idea, right? I don't see people walking around with pitchforks and fire right now going, we want Arenado still. No, it's more the opposite of, get him the hell out of town.
There was a column earlier today from Binfred that basically said exactly what you're saying, where it's like, hey, if this would have happened 1 year ago where the Cardinals were shopping Nolan Arenado, people would have had those pitchforks out because they would have been up in arms saying, well, are you serious? You're just punting on Nolan Arenado? And now people are like, yeah, Goldie gone, Arenado gone, not bringing back Kyle Gibson. This all makes sense to me. Like, people are very much in favor of this plan because they want something new. They want something different. They want a new outlook for what their franchise is going to do. I think people are open to it. I think the Cardinals wonder, if we get rid of Ryan Helsley and we lose 30 of the first 50 games, what does that look like at Busch Stadium in that scenario? And I don't know what that is, but that's the case no matter what. Whatever you do this offseason, if you lose, yeah, there are going to be fewer fans that come into the stands.
I hate to break it to the Cardinals. I don't know if the fan engagement is going to be that high at the beginning of the season.
I think they have to. Normally, the Cardinals operate in a sense where it's like, they have to show you they're bad before you believe that they're going to be bad. This year, they have to show you genuinely for a while that they're going to be good before anybody will buy into it. People are going to have to see them start the year like 50-30, like the first half of the year be well above 500 before people actually believe that the Cardinals are a good baseball
And you're
team.
going to gamble, and I'm not asking you that, I'm asking the Cardinals, and you're going to gamble on the potential of trading Ryan Helsley to get something valuable back off of you going off on some torrid pace at the beginning of the season. This entire clubhouse says in the middle of the second month of the season, well, we're a second-half team.
Yep.
And that's what you're going to gamble on with Ryan Helsley, who could be a good trade chip for you now, is we're going to gamble on being great so we can get butts in the seats.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running today at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We have plenty of texts coming in that are disagreeing with my stance on this, as you can probably imagine. From the 314,
Gasp.
BK, why must you always present the hot take? It makes zero sense to keep him. You think the Brewers are keeping Williams? I think it's possible. I think it depends on what the return is.
I mean, to the Brewers' point real quick, did anybody see them letting Willie Adames just stick around and walk when last year we thought they weren't going to be a contending team?
Hell, last year
kept him.
They decided to go out and sign first baseman Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah.
From the 980, BK, come on, man. When was the last time that the Cardinals front office cared what the fans think? If they cared what we thought, they would be a better team than they have been over the last 10 years, especially the last 3 or 4. They don't give a damn what the fans think. I disagree. I think the Cardinals care a great deal what you think. Now, they might not always do exactly what you want, but think about the way that they have treated their team over the last few seasons. Apparently, all of the stuff that we can see as fans, they have been investing in. And all of the stuff that we can't see as fans, they have lacked investment in. Why would they do that other than to appease their fan base? From the 618, BK, it's okay to admit that you're wrong. They're not competing the way that anybody wants next season. Having this level of closer with an extension on the horizon, it's just not worth the risk to wait out because teams sometimes don't cave at the deadline. Helsley might not be as good as he was last year. The time is now. They for sure can get a good enough haul. That's what I'm not certain of. And I don't know how anybody can possibly be certain of this. There are many, and I mean many closers. T-Bone, you said Pete Fairbanks is potentially available now too?
There's like 5 or 6 guys on the market right now.
Why would teams target Ryan Helsley specifically and potentially overpay for him when there are a half a dozen other guys as good or better as Ryan Helsley with potentially less injury history than Ryan Helsley
What's
available?
the cost on those guys, though, in terms of their salary?
Less than Helsley, probably for the most part.
Is it?
Helsley's going to make like $9 million next year, man. He's not going to be a cheap arm to get out of the back end of your bullpen. Now, I believe he's worth it. I think he's awesome. But I think that people are underestimating the likelihood they're not going to get the offer that we're thinking about here. And if they don't, I don't think they should just trade him to say that they traded him. I think it's okay to have Ryan Helsley on your roster starting next year. See what it looks like for the first few months of the season. It is also, I think people overrate the likelihood that he gets hurt. I think it's possible that he gets hurt. I have no idea. I think people overrate the likelihood that he gets hurt and does not continue to pitch at all next year. Is that a chance? Sure. I don't know what the likelihood is. And if I'm the Cardinals and I'm just getting something in return instead of the thing in return, I'm not dealing him in this offseason, man. I'm not doing it. I'm willing to sit here and get what is necessary for me to have to trade him. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. In 15 minutes, we're going to talk to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. Blues back in action tonight on the road. They begin that Western Canada road trip. They are in Winnipeg tonight. Pre-game for that with Alex begins at 6 o'clock. Alex, you're dressed up today for a road game?
It's a road game, man. Come on. Do you not know the attire for Ferrario during the Blues season?
I guess I
Full
forgot.
suit on home games.
I know, but you're wearing the jacket.
Jeans and jacket with the collared shirt on road games.
Even for road games.
Have a little respect for yourself, man. Now, when the games are 9 o'clock, there will be sweats and hoodies.
Okay, I was about to say, I feel like I remember
But by that time, there's no YouTube, so you don't have to worry about it, guys. Have some respect for yourself.
Coming up next, if you're not watching the Blues game, you might be watching the college football playoff rankings reveal. What are we looking for tonight as those latest rankings are revealed prior to championship week? We'll tell you next year on 101 ESPN. All right, so what are we watching for tonight as the college football playoff ranking reveal is on? This is the one that really matters. Everything before this is just a dog and pony show. They just need a good hour of television. They get good ratings for it. Let's go ahead and do a publicity stunt, essentially, is what the rest of the rankings are. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, tonight matters. And the reason why tonight matters, Alex, is because there are very few teams that still have games to play. One of the questions that I asked T-Bone a lot last week about South Carolina in particular is, how much does this game against Clemson matter? Because Clemson, even with the current rankings, I'm guessing they'll be like in that 15 to 18 range, somewhere around there. So South Carolina now has another significant win under their resume. Meanwhile, Alabama played Auburn and Ole Miss played Mississippi State. Those two teams in the SEC did not have a chance this past weekend to have a real resume builder. Well, now all three teams are going to be idle this upcoming weekend. So one of the things that I'm looking for is, how do they stack those teams up? How do they stack up Bama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina? It feels like things have shifted towards Alabama being the team that will be ranked at the top of that list heading into tonight's rankings. If you look at the Vegas odds, Alabama is now a favorite to get into the college football playoff. So we'll see how the committee decides to view that. But that is one of the things that I will be most interested in, most curious about heading into tonight's rankings reveal. Alex, is there anything else that you're going to have your finger on?
Mine's Miami. I'm really curious if they just completely drop out of this thing, or if they, for some reason, stay alive in terms of hopes. I don't see how that's possible. I think Miami is done. We went through this yesterday. It really comes down to SMU, Clemson fighting for that spot with their championship game. Yeah, and then after that, I think Alabama's in more Miami would be. So your SEC stack up in that sense, to me, pushes Miami out of it. So I'm really curious of how they view them with these final college football rankings.
Yeah, I would add them into to your point, Alex, that SEC stack of three teams with Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama. Where does Miami rank among those? Because they can't bump up.
Yeah.
Wherever those four teams are today should be where they are again after next week, because nothing will have changed with their respective resumes. So if today you have Bama ahead of Miami, that means Miami's done, and we can just stop talking about them anymore. If South Carolina's ahead of them, so forth. But that is definitely something worth monitoring.
Yeah, I think when you look at Miami, what the committee does with them will be kind of telling as to what the fate could be for SMU if they lose the ACC championship game.
Good point.
Because if Miami, let's just say they flip with where Clemson was, or not flip, but move to where Clemson was, because Clemson will drop down. So if they're at 12, then that basically tells you, so they view a two-loss Miami team as the first one out, because you'll have the Big 12 winner that will get in ahead of them. Well, then what that tells me is, okay, well, if Clemson then beats SMU, probably means that they're going to view SMU as probably sliding into that 12 range, which means they would then essentially be the first one out, because, of course, you'd have the ACC champion and Clemson leapfrog them. You would then have the Big 12 champion leapfrog them. The Group of 5 team, who currently would be ranked ahead of them, would be in there as well. So that would tell me, okay, if Miami is even sitting at 12 and not in the top 11, which I'm not expecting tonight, then that tells me, hey, the fate for SMU is they've got to win the ACC championship game if they want to get in. They cannot get in as a two-loss team. And then the other one for me is that SEC stack-up, because we talked about it. What will the committee look at South Carolina? Will they say, hey, that's another big win on your resume by beating Clemson on the road nonetheless? That's still a top 25 team. Does that give you enough to leapfrog Alabama and Ole Miss? And if you want me to be honest, I think Ole Miss is eliminated from the playoff, because they're behind Alabama already. There's nothing that really changed that would seem to signal they should leapfrog Alabama in these college football rankings. So now it comes down to, okay, it's Alabama versus South Carolina. Who do you view better? And if you want me to be honest, I would put Alabama ahead of them. They've got a head-to-head win, and I think the head-to-head win matters more than what your resume is, especially when you have a 9-3 record, both of you do. So I think what you're going to see is Alabama's going to be 13, but I'm fascinated to know how the committee views it, and I think they've already kind of laid out. BK was ripping on the earlier rankings. I think they've laid out the breadcrumbs with this, because you know who's ahead of Tennessee? Georgia, who beat Tennessee in a head-to-head matchup, and they've got the same record. So I kind of wonder if you're going to see South Carolina stay behind both Alabama and Ole Miss, and Bama will be that last SEC team that is quote-unquote alive on these final rankings.
Yeah, I mean, they beat them head-to-head. They also have Georgia just really good wins on their resume. Georgia has Clemson as a win, Texas as a win, and Tennessee as a win on their resume. Meanwhile, Tennessee's best wins on the season, Bama, and their second best win is probably Oklahoma, I guess, because it was on the road. So, like, I see what you're doing there, T-Bone. There's definitely an argument to be made that this was about the head-to-head matchup, but it's also about the resumes not quite being the same. Georgia certainly has some better wins on their resumes.
Look, you can look at it one way. I'll look at it another. I mean, it probably
Tomato.
It's probably a little bit of both, if
Now
we're
you guys
being
sound
honest.
like the college football voting committee.
Yeah, a little bit. But if we're being honest, it probably is a little bit of both, right? It is, okay, well, we look at Tennessee's resume. They clearly got a little bit easier of a schedule. But again, I do think the head-to-head matters.
I think it's both. For this one in particular, I think it's both. They beat them head-to-head, and they have the better resume. I don't think there's any scenario in which Tennessee will or should be ranked ahead of Georgia. That's where I think it gets really interesting for South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Yes, especially for South Carolina, like there are a lot of reasons why they would be ranked third in that trio. Most notably, they lost to both of those other teams, and so it becomes very difficult to make the case for South Carolina when you lost on the field against those teams head-to-head. But South Carolina also has a really good resume. Like, they've got some big-time wins, so there are legitimate reasons to take South Carolina. The one that really has a good case is Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a lot on its resume. Lane Kiffin tweeted it out the other day. If you want to go read the entire thing, we don't have to get into all of it. But Ole Miss has a really interesting resume, especially when you compare it to the likes of Alabama and South Carolina. All right, last thing that I wanted to get to here before we talk to Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider on the other side. What's the best case scenario for Mizzou and Illinois bowl games? Because they're not a part of this conversation. Both will likely be ranked in the college football playoff rankings at some points tonight.
Did you see Brett Bielema's tweet of Lane Kiffin? He really took it to him on why we should be a playoff.
Sure, yeah. There's
good luck with that.
A great case to be had for Illinois' awesome wins on their resume.
Yeah.
What were those
and
again?
we were close in our loss to Penn State.
Now, last week was really good for Illinois, because it's incredibly likely they will be the top-ranked Big Ten team that is not a part of the college football playoff. And that means they're likely going to be playing in the Citrus Bowl, which I know T-Bone does not care about. That's fine.
Snooze fest.
I think it's going to be a really fun bowl game. And the likelihood is you're going to be going up against whatever the top-ranked team is in the SEC that is not in the college football playoff. That's the team you'll be playing against. So, T-Bone, out of curiosity, since you will have the better bowl game this year than Missouri, even though you don't have the better resume than Missouri this year.
Take that, Mizzou.
It's because the Big Ten is not as good as the SEC,
whatever.
but another conversation for another day.
That's the world's smallest violin.
If you could play against one of Bama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina as an Illinois fan, who would you want in that bowl game?
This is going to sound probably strange. It would be South Carolina, because I think they would have more players playing in it. Because, like, I think of Alabama, a lot of their top-end guys that are going to go in the NFL draft, they're not going to play in that game. I don't even know if Jalen Milroe would play in that game. You look at Ole Miss, I think there's a question if Jackson Dart would play in that game. Some of their top-end guys won't play in that game. When I think of South Carolina, and maybe it's just me doing a disservice to South Carolina because they're not as much of a name brand as Ole Miss and Alabama have been over the last couple of years, I think most of their guys would play in that, and their quarterback would play. And we just raved about him and what he's done in their last two games. I mean, you look at what he did against Mizzou on that final drive. Look at what he did against Clemson in his final drive. He's a young quarterback that's playing really well. I want to know how Illinois would stack up against them. Illinois is going to have most of their guys play. The only guy that might not play is Pat Bryant, but even then it sounds like he's going to play. So you would have your full strength of team, Illinois, for the most part, going up against a really good South Carolina team that's right on the fringe of being in that playoff conversation with most of their guys there. That's the one that I would rather see. I think they would probably get Bama or Ole Miss, but I would prefer to see South Carolina if I'm a Fighting Illini fan.
All right, as a Mizzou fan, Alex, we've got a bunch of different options.
You said Michigan yesterday, right?
Yeah, so that appears to be one of the potential options.
Yeah, I'm kind of where T-Bone's at.
Hey,
on
man,
that one.
I watched Illinois or Michigan in person.
So the potential options for Mizzou are the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, the Las Vegas Bowl. You guys know where that's going to be played at? The ReliaQuest
Reno.
Bowl, previously known as the Outback Bowl, that is in Tampa Bay. The Gator Bowl, which is in Jacksonville, or the Music City Bowl, which is in Las Vegas. They just went to the Texas Bowl recently, so I don't think that they'll be part of that, but those are the five most likely, the ones that I just mentioned. Music City seems like the potential option against Michigan, Alex. That's the one that we were talking about the other day. That would be Nashville against Michigan. That'd be a fun one. ReliaQuest is in Tampa Bay, I believe, and that
Yeah.
one would be against Iowa, most likely, it seems like. That is a
yeah.
Big Ten or ACC team, most
honestly,
likely Iowa.
boy,
I
You're
would,
not- you're
I
not
would
selling this
boycott
bowl
that
game,
game
yeah.
all the way. If it Mizzou into Iowa, I'm out. I'm not playing.
The Gator Bowl is against the ACC. It feels like that's like a Duke, Syracuse kind of realm.
Syracuse might be fun.
And then the other one that I'm really interested in is
Right now, Michigan's the clubhouse
Vegas
leader.
Bowl. I'm kind of hoping for the Vegas Bowl, not so much because it's in Las Vegas, although that would be fun. It's because of the potential opponent. So the Las Vegas Bowl used to be SEC versus Pac-12. So there was the Pac-12 tie-in. Well, the Pac-12 no longer exists.
You got two choices.
And so this year, there isn't a tie-in from another conference, so they kind of get like best remaining available. And it seems like USC and Colorado are the two teams that have most been tied right now to the Las Vegas Bowl. I think part of that is just because of the draw of having those two locations that are relatively close to Las Vegas. Colorado is a big draw, obviously, with Dion. USC is a big name, if nothing else. My two favorite options are the Music City in Nashville, which is a super easy drive for a lot of people, especially here, to go up against Michigan. I know, not a fun team, but big name, just beat Ohio State. I could see the appeal of that. Or Vegas against either USC or Colorado. Do you guys have a lean one way or the other with either of those two bowl games?
I think the Music City one would probably be the most ideal because it's close enough to where you could get a lot of fans. And regardless if they're a bad team, it's still a big name with Michigan. And so I think that would be the one that would at least be if you give me Mizzou versus Iowa, I am opting out of that so hard. I am not watching anything that has to
That'd not
do
be a
with
fun
that
matchup.
one.
They enjoy punch in Iowa.
I would go the Music City Bowl.
I think I would lean that way as well.
Over the Vegas Bowl.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't want to play Colorado. And the reason I say that, I mean, you're not even going to see.
Yeah, you're not
going to
see Hunter.
Hunter wouldn't play.
So I don't think
I don't
they
even
will.
think Dion's going to show up.
Dion said that they're playing.
Sure.
I'm with you.
Put me in the big bowl
I think
game.
it's more like, look at Alex scenario happens where Dion doesn't even show up.
Yeah, they'll be in Vegas, but they're not playing.
I don't think that Travis Hunter will play. I do wonder on Shador, man. It's his son. Like, if Dion says you're playing and that's your son.
No, Dad.
You
No,
play?
he said they'll be there. They'll be in Vegas on the sideline in cool Colorado gear.
That's
they
fair.
ain't playing in that bowl game.
I think Shador would like to play in Las Vegas long term, so it's entirely possible Dion tells the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, hey, come to this bowl game, watch my son play.
They'll be
I
there.
know all of this sounds crazy to people because everybody opts out of games now. I'm not Dion has done everything different. Everything about what he's done has been different and strange and off the beaten path, and it's worked. I will give him full credit. It has worked. I'm not entirely sure that Shador would opt out. I think Travis Hunter will. I don't know on Shador, man.
Here's the thing. They'll be in Vegas.
That's my ideal scenario. I want to see Mizzou versus Colorado in the Vegas Bowl.
Yeah,
That's what I want.
I don't want to see
If
that
they're
because
playing, if they're playing like if Shador's playing, sure, then I'm in. But I'm still skeptical that he's really playing in that game.
they'll be playing poker at a casino on the Strip while
Good
that
for
game's
them.
taking place.
That'd be great. He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues Insiders, next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. It's time to get your insurance in order as we head into the new year. And new year means you're going to be getting some of that cruddy weather outside, so you want to make sure that you are protected. And Tracy talks all the time. It's not just about making sure that your vehicle is protected. It's making sure that it's protected against other people who don't have insurance on their car. So whether it's a fender bender on the side of the road, whether it's something wrong with your house, now's where you could get some of those tree branches falling down after all the ice and the snow. You got to make sure you're protected, and Tracy Bibb provides the customer service, provides making sure that she's getting you the most competitive rates out there when it comes to saving you money on your insurance. Super simple process. All you got to do is call Tracy and her team over at Allstate at 314-328-4260. You tell Tracy you heard me talk about it, and she will walk you through a free non-committal quote. Super simple. She'll even cancel your insurance that you have prior to switching over with her for you. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Taryn Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Winnipeg Jets. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues insider for The Athletic. He is Jeremy Rutherford, joining us on Tuesday, as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We have now seen 3 games with Jim Montgomery behind the bench for the St. Louis Blues. They are 2-0-1. They have had at least a point in each of these 3 games. What is the biggest thing that you've noticed with the Blues performance under Monty compared to what they had been doing the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'll get to the X's and O's in just a second, but I think it's having fun. It's a little bit cliche, but it is so true in this situation. For whatever reason, players, I spoke to 8 of them for a story that's up at The Athletic today. All of them just talk about how much fun it is to come to the rink and be around Monty. He brings that positive vibe. And then in terms of X's and O's, 3 or 4 of the players in the piece today said he's such a teacher. You'll have coaches come in and say, hey, here's the system, let's run it. But Jim Montgomery is a guy who really implements it well. They said, he'll stop the practices. Hey, look, this is what we want to do. You need to be here. You need to be there. I'm sure a lot of coaches out there try to accomplish the same thing, but they said that Jim Montgomery really delivers it well. And I think these tweaks and that extra teaching is going to bode well for a lot of these Blues young players.
So Jared, in terms of those tweaks, we've gotten it confirmed that it looks like tonight they're going to put Broberg up there with Colton Parayko. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people, when they saw Broberg get acquired from the Edmonton Oilers, are like, oh, well, there's your number one defenseman playing with Parayko. He's 6'4", he's left-handed. Makes a lot of sense. He's looked good. Of course, it's only his second game back. But is this the steps that you expected with Jim Montgomery to get Broberg these top pair minutes?
Oh, man, this means I'm going to be wrong because my bold prediction was that Broberg would play in that second pair all year with Justin.
It happens a lot here, man. Don't worry about it.
Some of us predicted this, JR.
Another bold prediction bites the dust here. But no, this definitely makes sense for the Blues to put Philip Broberg up in that top pair. Number one, Ryan Suter loves the minutes. He loves to play. I don't even think he expected to be playing as much in that top pair as he has here recently because of those injuries. But then Broberg, I asked Jim Montgomery the other day, do you watch his minutes? He said, no, if you have a horse, you let him run. Boy, did he let him run. 24 minutes in that last game. Yeah, showed a little rustiness, but he can knock that off in the one game like he did. So, if he's in the top pair tonight with Colton Parayko, I think you guys, as you've been talking about for months, that's a pair that you can envision playing in that top pair for many years to come. Broberg, we're obviously going to hear his name a lot in the next week as the Blues go back to Edmonton, and I talked to him about what that reaction might be. So I don't think Oilers fans are going to be too pleased to see Broberg in that top pair.
Probably not. They also won't be too pleased to see that we have already seen more goals here with Dylan Holloway for the St. Louis Blues this year than they saw with him last year in 40 games. JR, he's now on pace this season for like 45 points, a plus 15 on the season. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. The other guys that have done that at his age for the Blues are like Vladimir Tarasenko, Robert Thomas, Jaden Schwartz. There's like 4 of them over the last 15 years. Have we all almost undersold what Holloway's been able to do this year because of the Broberg experience?
Yeah, I think so. And I got to share a quick anecdote story about Dylan Holloway. Just a couple days ago, we were out at the Centene practice facility, and Jim Montgomery was in the media room doing a little scrum with reporters, and somebody asked him about Dylan Holloway. And he said, guys, I hear some shooting in the background. You could faintly hear, puck hitting, the shooting room in the back room. And he said, I bet you that's Dylan Holloway. And when Jim Montgomery finished up his press conference, I actually asked a PR guy, hey, could you go take a peek back there? And he came back and he said, yep, it's Holloway. Like he said, this guy wants to be a great hockey player. And that's what Dylan Holloway will tell you. And, hey, players can say that all the time. I've heard I want to be a great hockey player, dozens and dozens of times over the years. But Dylan Holloway, you can just feel it with him. And I do think we've undersold a little bit, BK, to answer your question, just because when you look at Philip Broberg, that's 6'4", 220 plus. He can skate. He's done it offensively for the Blues this year. He's done it in the back end too. He misses 12 games and then he comes back out and plays 24 minutes in his first night. This is a specimen. This is a guy who can be a star in this league. And oh yeah, by the way, now you got this forward who can also play left, middle, right, first line, third line, step up and score goals. Dylan Holloway, you cannot forget about him in this package.
So, JR, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but, of course, the Blues playing the Winnipeg Jets tonight, and you look at the makeup of their roster. They got a number one goaltender. They got really good defensemen. They've got a number one center. They've got a finisher. Do you see similarities in terms of the roster construction with the Winnipeg Jets and what the Blues are trying to put together?
Yeah, I think that's the key there is trying to put together. So the Blues have some pieces that I think mimic what the Jets have done. And I think that's why they've had so many great games, tight games against the Jets over the years. They're playing a similar, hard style. But the Blues just aren't there yet. And so the Winnipeg Jets are there, second best record in the league, although they have lost 3 games going into tonight. So, they're going to be hungry to change that. But I don't think that Doug Armstrong necessarily is looking at the Winnipeg Jets and saying, we need to copy them. Although if you did, you'd be in pretty good shape. I just do think there are some parts there. So it's a good team. It's been fun watching the Winnipeg Jets over the years, and they're certainly putting it together this year.
Is it fair to say Kyle Connor is the thing, like the biggest thing that the Jets have that the Blues are lacking, that guy that just every year you could write it in pen, 35 plus goals and a legit sniper. He's got a 15% shooting percentage in his NHL career.
Yeah, you're right. There's the finisher, and he can do it, and it's fun to watch him play. Like, he's a guy, when I sit down in that press box, Blues, Jets at Enterprise, he's a guy I keep an eye on because, you know, it can come off that stick so fast, and, you know, he's finding all the holes on the goalies. And, you know, the Blues do need that. You know, is it Snuggerud? You know, maybe it is. Well, you know, we'll see. But, you know, as good as a couple of these guys are with their shot, you know, you hope that Jordan Kyrou can still be that guy, even though he scores a lot of goals. You know, maybe not the elite finisher that a Connor is. But, yeah, if the Blues could find a Connor, they'd be in really good shape.
He's Jeremy Rutherford. You can read all of his great work over at The Athletic. He does have a piece up, as he mentioned, with comments from 8 different players on what they have learned already, what they've seen already from Jim Montgomery in his short time here in St. Louis as the new St. Louis Blues head coach. So check that out over at The Athletic. The link is also available on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Anytime, boys. Thanks.
Got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. If you missed any of our conversation with JR, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about Phil Broberg potentially jumping up on that top pair with Colton Parayko, what that could mean for the Blues. We'll get into that at 12 o'clock. But next, we want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. Some news from the Illini. Pat Bryant, wide receiver. You said he was second team all Big Ten this year, T-Bone, officially. He has officially declared for the NFL draft as expected. He posted this on Twitter. After much thought, prayer, and discussion with my family, I'm proud to declare for the 2025 NFL draft. This decision marks the next step in my dream, and I am ready for the challenges that lie ahead. My assumption is if you are declaring this today, you will not be participating in the bowl game. And I do not say this as any disrespect for Pat Bryant. He can do whatever he pleases. I don't know where Pat Bryant is going to be projected to go in the NFL draft. My assumption is probably 3rd to 5th round, somewhere in that range-ish. Kind of similar to what I'm thinking is likely the case for Theo Weiss. Probably going to go in that like early day 3 range, 4th, 5th, 6th round, something like that. I would not be sitting out the bowl game for these guys. If you're a top 50 pick, I don't blame you at all if you sit out the bowl game. I wouldn't play in it either if I was them. You're basically guaranteed to have an opportunity at the next level, a significant opportunity at the next level. I think Pat Bryant is a good player. I think there's a chance he becomes a really good NFL player. I don't know that. I'm not certain of that at all. It's entirely possible this is the last time he gets to be a go-to guy on a team that he plays for. And to opt out of that in what is going to be, I know T-Bone hates it, but the Citrus Bowl is a really cool experience, man. You go down to Orlando for a few days. You're playing against a legit opponent. Like if you go up against South Carolina or Ole Miss, there will be NFL players on the defensive side of the ball that you get to line up against and put good film on tape once again. I don't love these guys opting out of these bowl games. I don't think any other Mizzou player other than Luther Burden should. I have the same opinion for them that I do for a team that I'm not a fan of, so just full disclosure there. I don't love this, but I get it. It's his decision. He gets to make it. I just don't. If I'm in those shoes and I'm not a top 50 pick guaranteed, I'm not opting out of these bowl games personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on one hand, I'm with you because like you got to continue to rise your stock as much as possible, but to play the devil's advocate, if I'm a player that has hopes of getting drafted in the NFL, I don't want to take a chance of getting injured in a game like that. And I'd much rather be healthy and my stock stay where it is or maybe drop a little bit and get drafted in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round than not get drafted at all because I get injured in a bowl game.
Yeah, I don't have a real issue with him deciding to opt out of the bowl. I think it just goes to show you where college football is on bowl games, and it's kind of where my stance is as to why I don't really care what bowl Illinois ends up in. And if I've got that stance, I'm assuming Pat Bryant kind of has the same thing of, hey, this is just an exhibition. No need for me to risk getting hurt. I'll start prepping for the combine because that's where your stock will really boost. Is if you have a good combine, that's where you're going to rise it. You have a good game against some of the backup defensive backs for whoever it is you end up playing.
I think you're overstating how many defensive backs will opt out for these teams, but again,
I think the other thing I'd be worried about too, if I'm a player like that, is that's a game where a lot of younger players are trying to make a name for themselves, and one defensive player tries to make a big hit, and then next thing you know, boom.
It's possible. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. Again, I don't blame anybody for doing it. I just personally don't like seeing it. All right, from the 314. Guys, who will we see first, Dvorsky or Snuggerud?
Oh, Dvorsky. You won't see Snuggerud until I think the Frozen Four, and I'm only predicting they'll be in the Frozen Four because they're one of the top 3 teams in college hockey right now. I think the Frozen Four is that first week of April. So you would imagine, let's say that they make it to the championship game and win. He signs the day after. You're probably not playing until maybe those last 4 games of the regular season, if you sign. And Dvorsky, I think you're going to see Dvorsky post 4 Nations break. The end of February, beginning of March, I think, is when you'll see Dvorsky. So, Dvorsky.
That'd be my answer as well. I think, one, he's in the organization already, so he can come up whenever Blues please. But I could see where it is, to your point, right after that 4 Nations tournament, right after the trade deadline. That's when it makes sense. You've got to wait on Snuggerud, and that would be till the, like you said, final week of the season.
I'm trying to find the exact dates of it. I think it's like
May.
that. No, the Frozen Four?
I know. I think that's when he was potentially going to come up last year.
No, because it's typically at the end of the regular season. I'm trying to find what the actual dates are for it.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
It's late. I think last year was like 12 games that he could have potentially played in.
Yeah.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. Guys, why not just get rid of the Bulls? The players that people want to see won't end up playing. Why would anybody else want to watch?
Hell yeah.
Money.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's the same reason why we do everything that we do in college football nowadays. Like, why does the Pac-12 no longer exist? Money. Why are Texas A&M, Missouri, and Oklahoma in the SEC and not in the Big 12 where they have so much history with all of those teams? Money. I think that's it.
Why are we
is
still
USC,
playing?
UCLA, and Cal participating in the ACC versus SEC championship or the tournament or whatever?
Because they just really enjoy it.
Yeah. We
They
love
were like,
the
man,
camaraderie.
we were watching that on our couch, said their athletic director, and said, man, we really need to get involved in that.
From the
By the way,
3-1
April 10th through the 12th. That's when
There you go.
Frozen
May, like I
Forest.
said.
Yeah, May.
From the 3-1-4. Guys, who
Hey, in the
signs
Stanley Cup final. I think it's June.
Who signs Danny Dimes as their starter for next season? I'm not sure anybody signs Danny.
I think he's a backup again next year.
Yeah, I think he might go the
Battlehawks
Sam
route.
Darnold. The Sam Darnold route, where Darnold ended up going to the 49ers, spent a year as the backup there, rehabbed his image. I don't know why this works in the NFL, but it does.
It worked for Trubisky as well. Remember, went backed up as
Baker.
the Bills. Oh, yeah, Baker as well.
His was like 4 weeks, but
Yeah.
he spent some time with the Rams. It's basically, hey, go find a coach that has had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay,
Yeah.
spend at least a month with them, and the next year you'll be a starter in the NFL somewhere.
And look, Darnold learned.
Yeah.
So
Baker
Baker
now a
learned.
legit starter.
Yeah. Baker even did it like without even really knowing the playbook.
He was there for like 3 days.
And then he like led a 90-yard drive to go win a football game. It was impressive. Good for Danny Dimes.
The Raiders.
Ugh.
I just like, where are the openings this year?
He would make sense as like if they keep maybe like as the backup to Russell Wilson, like in Pittsburgh,
Or the
But
backup
like they've
to-
got Justin Fields,
Or the backup to Tua.
I don't know if he fits that offense though. I mean, the less he throws, the better. That's
Guess that's true.
why Pittsburgh made sense.
So the Baltimore
If
Ravens.
you're him, don't you just stay in Minnesota for another year?
I probably would.
You got J.J. McCarthy, who's coming off of a serious knee injury. You don't know if he's for sure going to be 100% healthy for next year.
They probably don't keep Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you do. I think that's why it makes sense that he signed there to begin with. That would be my personal route. And you're literally following the Sam Darnold plan.
Yeah, and I think Kevin
hopefully
O'Connell's
next
Worked pretty well.
underappreciated head coach in the NFL.
Somebody said total Jets move. They can't do that. Not in that city. I said earlier today, you don't do things just to appease your fans, but in New York, getting the former Giants quarterback that got pushed out of town.
It would be great theater, though, text line.
Yeah.
That
Someone said the
that would be
Saints.
terrible.
I don't think they can afford any more players.
No, they can't go out there and sign somebody.
They can't afford any more average players on their team.
If you're the Saints, just run it back with Derek Carr. You're going to stink next year. There's no reason
Blow
to change
it up.
anything else.
Blow it up.
Blow it up.
All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to get into some NFL quick hitters. But coming up next, is it time to go with Broberg on the top pair with Colton Parayko for the long term? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So the Blues had an interesting situation on Saturday as they took the ice. They finally were able to get back to having Philip Broberg on the ice. And Alex, with him on the ice, I assumed, like JR said earlier today, he'll probably get like 20 minutes of ice time, maybe on the high end of things, because he's coming back from a serious injury. He's been out for a month. And instead, he ended up playing 24 minutes. And when asked afterwards about him playing 24 minutes, Jim Montgomery said, you could tell he's somebody that's going to drastically improve a team like he did early in the year. There was a little rustiness out there, but I thought in the third period, we really started to see him go north with the puck, use his feet to defend, and add numbers to the offense. He also was asked about the time on the ice and said, when you got a horse, you let him run.
Amen. Amen. When you got Black Beauty on the ice, you just let her run free.
So,
horse reference. You're welcome.
Alex, as we get further into this, by a game, that quote made me wonder. If he believes that, is it time to just put him up on that top pair?
Yeah.
So, you know what? Let's see what this looks like. If you're going to play 24 minutes a night, I want him playing 24 minutes with Colton Parayko, not Justin Falk. Are we about to see that, Alex?
I think we are, and I think you're about to see a little bit of an extended run with it as well because, one, you still don't have Nick Leddy. Now, Leddy's on the trip, and at some point I would imagine you're going to see Leddy play on this road trip. Otherwise, I don't think they would have taken him. So when Leddy comes back, I don't think he's going to be in the same Broberg situation to where he comes back in game one, he's playing 24 minutes a night. He's going to be slow played back into things because of this injury that started off day to day and then became month to month. They've run with the Suter and Parayko thing, in my opinion, as long as they could. I think you're starting to see the mileage wear down a little bit with Ryan Suter, which you try and pull back a little bit on those minutes. When Broberg, before he was injured, this guy was playing top pair minutes. He was just doing it with Justin Falk. They were splitting the amount of ice time between Suter and Parayko and Broberg and Falk at about 20 minutes apiece. So all you're doing is you're just bumping him up a little bit, and you're going to give a little bit more ice time. Everything he does is strong on the ice in terms of he creates offense, he generates offense, and defensively, he's very sound in his own end. He knows how to break up plays. His skating is elite. Why wouldn't you put two elite skaters on the defensive end who are big, who could break up plays, and can drive the puck north and exit out of their zone cleanly? Does that sound familiar to anybody of a former Blues pair that was on the ice? So, yeah, I can understand the sentiment. I think I've seen a lot of texts already come in on our Air Comfort Service text line stating, why would you break up that pair of Broberg and Falk? I'd rather have two pairs that could play 23 minutes than one pair that plays 24 minutes. Yeah, but I want an elite pair. And that's what I think you have with Broberg and Parayko.
Especially on the road. Because you're not going to be able to dictate the matchups the way that you could if you were at home, right? And in a game like Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, I want to be able to put my best pair on the ice whenever I need them. You know, and like that may mean 25 minutes a night for those two guys. We don't know. Early on, I remember this is something that I was really curious about with Drew Bannister is he was playing his top pair a ton, dude. Like they were playing 25 minutes for the top pair, and then I think the second pair was playing like 22. They basically never used the third pair defensively. So I wonder if you see kind of a reversion back to that where Monty says, hey, I'm going to ride these guys. We'll see what it looks like, and if I need to pull back a little bit, I will. But while they're trying to make a little bit of a push here in December, I do wonder if you see more and more being put onto the plate of Colton Parayko and Broberg because they know these are the guys that can potentially get us to the postseason.
Yeah, and I think at some point you'll probably see it switch back a little bit because Jim Montgomery, he likes to tinker. And if it doesn't look good, he's going to flip it back. And if for some reason, because the one thing I will say that I'm a little reserved about with Parayko and Broberg together is what does that do to Broberg's game? Do you have two guys that are always trying to pinch in? Because you saw that burn them the other night against Philadelphia where Falk was pinching in along with Broberg and there was nobody that was covering for them on the backside.
That's actually why I like it. Because to me, and I know some disagree with this, I think at this point in his career, Parayko is a stay-at-home defenseman. Now, he can lead the rush. He's so incredibly fast and he can get up the ice so quickly that, sure, in that scenario, I want Parayko just skating it up the ice. But for the most part, I want Broberg being the one that's getting up into the offense, and I want Parayko being the one that's staying at home. And I would say the same thing is true now for what you're going to have on that second pair where Falk now becomes the guy that gets up into the rush. He can be the one that is more offensive-minded, whereas with Broberg, it was kind of a 50-50 proposition there. Yeah. I think it's easier to define the roles now with both of those respective pairings.
Yeah, well, and that's the other part of why I wonder if they're breaking up Broberg and Falk is they need to get Falk going.
Absolutely.
And look, I know that they were playing well as a pair in the early portion of the season, but you really weren't getting the point production from Justin Falk, and defensively there were some errors on the ice. Now you're putting a guy who is just a simple stay-at-home guy that's going to be there to cover your ass while you're on the ice, and Justin Falk can go about his business.
Do you know how many even strength points Justin Falk has on the season?
He's got 7 so far this year. I'll say he's got 4.
I think it's 2.
It's 4.
Dang it.
He has 4 even strength points on the season because 3 of them, as Alex mentioned, have come on the power play.
Yeah.
So you're just not getting enough out of him. You need to get more offense. That's what you're paying him for. He's never going to be defined as some kind of stay-at-home defenseman. He's a guy that you want to get up in there and give you 40 to 50 points on any given season, and he's not giving that to you
And see,
right
the
now.
part about it is for the person that was texting in saying like, no, I want 2 guys that could play 23 minutes. You still have that. You still have 2 pairs that could play 23 minutes. Brian Suter has played 30 minutes like 3 times since Philip Broberg's been injured, but now you're cutting back on the minutes that he's playing so much. So I love it, frankly, and like this is what you need if you're this organization. You need Broberg and Parayko to be the top dogs for you moving forward.
Yeah. All right. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, there was an interesting question asked the other day about Juan Soto. Is he truly a generational player? Is this the kind of guy that you would want to give 15 years and like $600 million to? Or is he just an excellent hitter? And if so, what does that mean for the way that he should be treated in the free agency market, even if he's not going to necessarily be treated that way? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters here at BK and Ferrario. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Let's start out with this. Alex, the Philadelphia Eagles, I feel like most of our conversation about them has been with our skepticism because of their head coach, because of some of the decisions that he makes, and we think he's kind of a bumbling idiot sometimes. However, they are 10-2 right now. They now have wins this season against the Packers, the Bengals, who I know aren't a great team, but God, they're talented. The Commanders and the Ravens. This week against the Ravens, it was a pretty convincing victory, and it was a game that we all said going in. So one worth keeping an eye on to see how the Eagles are able to respond. Are you ready at this point to consider the Eagles a legitimate threat as a Super Bowl contender?
Man, I want to say no so bad because I do not trust Nick Sirianni, and I think he is going to screw this up at some point. I really don't know how I can deny it. I have to put them in the same conversation as the Detroit Lions right now. I mean, their offense has been just as good, especially when you've got the dude who should probably be the MVP in Saquon Barkley. Their defense has been much better than I have been giving them credit for. And as much as I think the coach is bad, he hasn't screwed it up yet. Now, I still think it's going to happen, but if I'm going to say that the Detroit Lions are a legit Super Bowl contender, I think I have to put the Philadelphia Eagles in there as well.
I think they are a Super Bowl contender, and I actually am now not even worried about Sirianni. Wow. And the reason I say that, I think we're having that recency bias of, well, we saw him collapse last year, right? I think that was a roster problem, too. Like, I think it was Sirianni, Hurts didn't get along, and you know what? Maybe they still don't, but they've at least been able to mend the fences enough to get through this year to where you're not going to see that collapse. And we act like Sirianni's like McCarthy, right? Where he's gotten to the playoffs and he's itched the bed every time he's gotten there with the Cowboys. This guy got to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So as much as I do kind of understand some of that skepticism on Sirianni, hey, man, this guy's gotten the Eagles to a Super Bowl before with a roster that though that team was good 2 years ago, I think this one is better.
And last year, by the way, let's not act like that was a Sirianni problem necessarily. Now, I don't think he helped the situation. That team just imploded.
Yeah.
They didn't lose in the playoffs because of Nick Sirianni. They lost in the playoffs because the team blew up from within. They had no running game, and everything went to hell. They needed a new defensive coordinator. They just needed to overhaul everything about the way that the team was progressing. They did that this offseason. Now they look to be, I don't know if they're the best team in the NFL. They might be the most talented team in the NFL right now. So I've got to view them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender at this point, man. If not them, I don't know who else in the NFC. I would say right now, for the NFC Super Bowl contenders, tell me if you guys disagree with this. I think it's Detroit, Green Bay, Philly. Not necessarily in that order, but I think those are the three teams that, as of today, I can see coming out of the NFC to play in the Super Bowl. Is there anybody else you would add to that mix or subtract from that mix?
I wouldn't put the Packers in there.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think they're at the same level with the Lions and the Eagles.
You see no scenario in which the Packers are representing the NFC in the Super Bowl?
Not in the Super Bowl, no.
Oh, okay.
I kind of agree with him. I don't know if I view the Packers as that. To me, they're kind of like...
They've lost against every contender they've played against so far this year.
They remind me...
You guys are right on that.
They feel like whoever you want to call in that second tier in the AFC, right? Like in the AFC, we say it's Buffalo, it's the Chiefs, that's it.
Sure.
That's kind of where I view the Packers. I think they're in a tier of their own in
Would your
tier
mind
2.
change if they beat the Lions on the road this Thursday? The way that our mind kind of changed with the Eagles after beating the Ravens last week. Because if they beat the Lions, that's what they need to do in the postseason.
Yeah. It would change for me because then you've proven, okay, we can win on the road against the Detroit Lions, who I view in that top tier. Then, I think if they can do that, then they will move up to that spot.
I still feel like playoffs are just a different animal than the regular season, but because it's so close to the postseason at this point of the regular season, I would give them a lot more consideration into being in that conversation.
All right, next thing is we go through some NFL quick hitters. By the way, I view the Packers as a legit Super Bowl threat.
We know, man. You love Jordan.
I think he's fantastic. I love the way that he plays.
Tell you what, he's not fantastic at fantasy football. Guy's been trash this season.
He's hit and miss, man. When he hits, he's got a real ceiling. But there are some games where he's going to throw for 220 yards and a touchdown, and you're not going to like what you get out of him. But like this past week, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. It's a nice game. It's a really nice game. Earlier this season against the Lions, 273 passing yards. Okay, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. It's one or the other typically with him.
Yeah.
All right, next thing up here as we go through some NFL quick hitters, I want to talk about the other Pennsylvania team, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. who proved me wrong this week. I thought they were losing against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm doing this thing where every week I'm wrong on the Bengals.
You still in on them?
No,
remember when you went through the list of their games?
Yeah.
Win.
And we were like,
they're going undefeated.
I think you're just kind of doing this for your sake here.
For your own point? Yeah, that makes sense.
They're going to be 5-12 at the end of the season and picking like 6th overall in the NFL draft. And I'll be like, man, I'm scared of them in the playoffs. If that team gets in,
they'll be like the Cowboys. They'll be like the Cowboys, 5-12 at the end of the season. But Micah Parsons will be like, "Oh, we're coming, boys."
In Pittsburgh, they have Russell Wilson, who put up like 700 passing yards this week.
It's absurd.
Is he earning another opportunity as a legitimate starter, either in Pittsburgh or elsewhere?
Only in
with
Pittsburgh.
What he's performed.
No more elsewhere. Only in Pittsburgh. I didn't think this was possible for Russell Wilson. Like, I think a lot of people would say he could go do this somewhere. Look at the weapons he could be playing with. It's not even about the weapons. I think he's working because he's got the right head coach with him. I think Mike Tomlin is the reason Russell Wilson is having this type of success right now. So I would continue to give him a shot if I'm Pittsburgh. The wild part is I thought Justin Fields was good for them at the beginning of the season too, and that was something that you could build with. But what was a terrible quarterback situation last season and going into this season actually is pretty good for the Steelers now. You may have a couple more years of Russell Wilson. Justin Fields is still technically young.
Yeah, I think I would bring him back. No, I wouldn't. He's old, so he's not going to get a long-term contract. He's 36.
Like a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah,
I would bet he gets something similar to the Kirk Cousins deal. Like,
I thought
not as much
Mayfield.
money. Sure, maybe that kind of money, but on the Mayfield term or on the Kirk Cousins term, it's like 3 years.
I think that makes sense for Pittsburgh. You're not really in quarterback limbo. Now, granted, you're not with a top-tier quarterback, but you're right, Alex. I mean, he just fits so perfectly for the way they want to operate their offense. And I think when you look at them, you don't need a quarterback to lift you up to win football games. It's their defense that does it. So, yeah, I would bring him back. Now, if I'm another team, I would definitely not pay him to come in as our starting quarterback because I think he is just a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I would do it because I don't know what the alternative is. Like, if not Russ, then who? What are you getting that is going to upgrade
Danny
what you currently
Dimes.
have? Exactly.
I was just about to say that.
I would rather have Russell Wilson than Daniel Jones, especially given the fact that Daniel Jones is probably going to be more of a long-term investment that you'd have to make. He's also younger. This is clearly working. I didn't see it coming. It's dead wrong on this. I thought they should have stuck with Justin Fields. It's clear they were right, and I don't know why I continue to question Mike Tomlin. The guy has proven at this point at every turn that he's one of the 5 to 7 best coaches in the NFL, and he's going to get whatever is available out of his respective teams. So kudos to him. Kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, next thing up here. Bo Nix was awesome again last night. The Denver Broncos are a legit playoff team. They have a good defense. They are the Steelers light. They have a solid quarterback, but younger, obviously. Decent wide receivers that can make some big plays, as you saw yesterday, and they've got a really, really good defense. When you have that formula, you have what it takes to win 10 or 11 games in any given season, and I think that's going to be where the Denver Broncos are. Bo Nix is a big part of that. He is not the only rookie quarterback finding success this season, though. All 4 of them that have started, for different reasons, have shown you some amount of reason to believe in them. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. If you were starting a franchise today, and you could have any of the 4 as your starting quarterback for the next decade, you're locking them in. Who are you going with out of Nix, Daniels, Williams, or Drake May, Alex? Who would you most want to build around?
Mine's Jaden Daniels. I think with the arm and with the ability to scramble out of the pocket and create offense with his legs, I think that's the one that I would rather build my team with. I like Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be very good. I would probably put Williams at 2 and Bo Nix at 3.
Wow. No Drake May?
No, he'd be at the bottom.
Yeah, I think I would go Daniels as well. But you know who I think's actually pushing for 2 and has gotten closer into that category as number 1? To me, is Bo Nix. I've been so impressed with him, man. And like, I don't know if any of these 4 guys are going to end up being top 10 quarterbacks. And the thing with Caleb Williams, I think the one thing he's never going to shake is the one thing Lamar hasn't shaken, right? Is the bad sacks. And I think he's going to be a guy that really falls victim to that. I have Daniels at 1, but the reason I say Nix is closed in is because, I mean, you see some of the throws that Nix is making. You're really seeing him progress with Sean Payton. Daniels is stalled, man. Like, let's just be honest about what the Commanders have been, right? They were that fun, flashy team for 7 games.
It's Cliff Kingsbury's offense.
I was just about to say,
every single time.
Maybe it's the Kingsbury effect, where it is, hey, we're fun for 8 games, and then the NFL figures us out. But I also wonder if some of that is on Daniels as well, which is why I still think he's won, because I think he's been the most impressive of the rookies. But I think he's slowly starting to come down on my list.
You guys are going to really hate mine.
He's putting Drake May at number 1, Caleb Williams at 2, Nix at 3, and Daniels at 4.
No. I would go Drake May 1. I have been so impressed by what we've seen from Drake May, man. He has looked so good, and he has clearly, without question, the worst supporting cast and the worst coaching out of these 4. Maybe you could argue coaching with Caleb. Let me set that aside.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The second worst
his coach isn't there anymore.
They just fired us after a press conference following a game.
And the worst supporting cast out of the 4. Drake May can make every throw. He doesn't tend to make the same mistake multiple times. I think he gets underrated as a runner. Do you guys know how many rushing yards Drake May has so far this year?
No, because I haven't really been locked into New England Patriots football.
He has 350 rushing yards in 9 games. That means over the course of a full season, he's projecting to be a 700-yard rusher. That's freaking awesome, dude.
And all of that is like bleep situations where it's like,
He's been great. So I think we're underselling how good of a year Drake May is having, and it's because he has just this horrific team that is around him right now. It's going to take a couple of years, and he's only 22. He's 2 years younger. Bo Nix is like a geriatric. He's going to be 25 at the end of this
Age
football
is but
season.
a number.
Yeah.
So he's 3
Look
years.
at Russell Wilson.
He's 3 years younger, basically, than Bo Nix. That's meaningful, man. There's real growth that's still there potentially in Drake May. I would go with him number 1. I can't believe I'm saying that.
The reason I wouldn't even, I'm not even going to push back against it, because I don't even have a fair argument for it, because I feel like I don't see Drake May, right?
I don't
when you watch
it.
NFL Red Zone, you're just like, man, did the Patriots play today? Oh yeah, they did. Oh, that's right. I did see the Colts highlights this week.
This is crazy. Somebody on the text line just sent this in. Drake May is on pace to average more rushing yards per game than Lamar Jackson had in his first season as a starter.
It feels it feels a little fluky to me.
Dude.
Wait,
I'm going to say the thing.
Tony.
You got to go watch him, because nothing about it when you watch is fluky. This guy is legit. He's so good. Jesus, I'm so impressed.
This is like when BK says, this line doesn't make any sense. This is an obvious line here.
It is he's hidden in plain sight right now because nobody watches the Patriots, and I don't blame you. You shouldn't watch them. They're 3-10, and they're a horrific football team. Next year or 2 years from now, when they get good, because they're gonna be good, because that guy is really good.
We'll see.
He is. I heard somebody make the comparison the other day.
Oh,
and
here we go. Tom Brady.
I would have made that.
oh God.
It's like John Elway. Like a
geez.
young John Elway is kind of what we're watching.
Here we go. Just throwing them out there, boys. Let's see which spitwad sticks.
All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next.
Thought we just did it right there.
I love Drake May, man. And we haven't even seen Michael Penix Jr. or J.J. McCarthy
You
yet.
love the wildest quarterbacks. It's like, I love Drake May. I love Anthony Richardson.
I love Josh
Jordan
Rosen.
Love.
Well, the Jordan Love I could get behind, although, again, trash fantasy football quarterback.
Yeah, these guys that are willing to try stuff, that's coming after my heart. Like Bo Nix, he's fine.
He's trying stuff.
There is no ceiling whatsoever with Bo Nix. He's never going to be better than the 15th best quarterback in the league. Never. Not once. And like for me, I'm aspiring for so much higher, because I'm going to beat Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. Like these dudes in the postseason, I better have a ceiling to it.
It's going to be really awkward when Bo Nix beats Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's very
I mean, he almost lost to Aiden O'Connell this past week.
and Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should talk more about Patrick Mahomes than we should talk about the other quarterback.
Touche. All right, coming up next, is Juan Soto truly a generational type of a player? T-Bone has quite the take on this. He'll tell you it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. I was talking with my guy Mike Ryder today, and he had furnace issues. And he said Pat from Classic Air Care was out, took care of he and his family at the house, fixing up that furnace. And this is what Classic Air Care is all about, making people comfortable. They've been doing so since 1926. And when you call them, whether it's some issue with your furnace or air conditioner, whether you're looking for a brand new unit, you know you're getting knowledgeable technician. You know you're getting elite customer service. All of that with Classic Air Care. Don't just believe me, though. Believe the 4.8 rating, the 2,500 plus Google reviews that are talking about the customer service and the knowledgeable technicians. Like this one from Michelle. I just mentioned Mike talked about it. Michelle talked about Nick, another technician who came out for a miracle on a freezing cold day, had the furnace fixed in less than an hour, was kind, polite, respectful, and explained everything that we needed to know. So get on the maintenance agreement, have them come out, check out your older unit or maybe your new unit with Classic Air Care. That's classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Winnipeg Jets. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for puck drop at 7. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex, what if I told you there is a player available this offseason that when you look at his OPS through his age 25 season, the only guys in the last 30 years that have been better at this point in their respective careers are Frank Thomas, Vlad Guerrero, not Junior, Lance Berkman, Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, and Yordan Alvarez. Because that is what Juan Soto has done at the plate. Juan Soto, through his age 25 season, has an OPS of 953. And yet his best attribute is actually his eye, his batter's eye. He gets on base 42% of the time. In other words, he does not record an out 42% of the time that he comes up to the plate. Alex, in the last 90 years, the only guys at this point in their respective careers that got on base at a higher rate than Juan Soto has thus far are Ted Williams, Frank Thomas, Mickey Mantle, and Stan Musial.
Oh.
So as a hitter, Juan Soto is objectively a generational talent. Those guys that I mentioned played baseball in 1939, 1951, 1941, and 1990.
So this guy that you're talking about must be very old.
We haven't seen this kind of player at this age, 25, in the last 30 years. Yes, that is generational as a hitter. Is he a generational baseball player, though, is a question that was asked yesterday. I thought it was a really good one by Kyle Reese over on Twitter. And it was almost 50-50 in terms of the responses because people will go one of two ways. One, well, the hitting is the hardest thing to do in Major League Baseball, and he does that as well as anybody ever has at his age. On the other side of that coin, he has no defensive value. In fact, he's a negative in the outfield. He maybe could play first, but we just don't know. He has no value on the bases because he is well below league average in speed. He's like Nolan Arenado speed, and he's only 25. That's going to get worse before it gets better. So you're not really adding any value anywhere else other than with your bat. But that bat is so freaking good. It is generational. So what do you do with this? Alex, I want to get to your thoughts on this, but I know T-Bone has a little bit maybe of a controversial opinion on this.
I was going to say, hold on, I'm going to
on Soto.
plop on down because you two are about to get into a fight.
Yeah, we're not at all. I'm open to both sides of this conversation. I think he's a really tricky proposition. I do not feel the way about Juan Soto as a long-term outlook as I did about Bryce Harper or as I did about Mookie Betts. I thought those were no doubt. Like, you got to give them 13 years, give them whatever they want. These guys are worth every penny because they bring so much value beyond just what they do with their bat. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Juan Soto or not. I presented the case for it with the bat. T-Bone, what's the other side?
Well, I think he's not a generational type player because he's not good defensively. He doesn't bring value on the base paths. And look, I'm not denying anything that you said about his bat. His bat's unbelievable. And I think he's got the best batter's eye in all of baseball. And that does matter. And he should get paid a significant contract for it because you're right, nobody does hit in Major League Baseball anymore. But to me, he's not a guy that deserves 15 years, right? His defense is only going to get worse. I mean, I just looked up what his defensive metrics were last year. He was -7 in outs above average, or defensive run saving, excuse me.
Gold Glove nominee, though.
Stupid.
So
is
was
what
Marcelo
that is.
Zuna.
Yeah,
That's my response.
You're right. I agree with everything you're saying.
This is why I hate the Gold Glove Award, by the way. But he's not a good defender, and he's playing in the outfield, and it's only going to get worse from here on out as he starts to age and get older. And he's a guy that has said, like, hey, I don't want to just take a designated hitter role, you know? So he's going to be probably a little pushy on his defense and want to be in the field all the time. And if you don't provide that good defense, well, you can't be an all-generation type talent. Now, I will pay him like an 8 to 10-year deal for his bat because his bat's unbelievable. He's thinking 15 years, man, because he wants to get that contract that will go past his prime. And that's why I'm afraid. If I'm a team, I'd be afraid to do it because defensively doesn't provide anything. To your point on his speed, he is slow on the base paths. Now, he does get on base a lot, which is nice. But, again, to me, you can't be an all-generation type player if you don't bring everything to the ball diamond, right? Mookie Betts does that. Mookie Betts brings power, gets on base, but plays excellent defense at, by the way, any position that he plays, and moved to shortstop on opening day for the LA Dodgers and still played it pretty well. He can steal bases. Same with Shohei Ohtani, right? Ohtani has the bat, can pitch, though he doesn't play defense. That's his version is, hey, I'm a pitcher. Hey, I steal bases as well. You look at him, and you mentioned Bryce Harper. Harper, really good defender when he was out there in the outfield. Now a really good defender at first base.
Also
can also
athletic.
steal bases. Yep. Very athletic. Incredible bat. Maybe one of the best pure power hitters in all of the sport. Like, those are all generation-type players. And I don't see that with Juan Soto. His defense worries the hell out of me for a guy that's going to be getting a 15-year contract.
The guy that I would compare him to in terms of how I feel about how he'll age is Miguel Cabrera. And Miguel Cabrera was amazing until his age 33 season. You start at age 26 up until age 33. This was his OPS by year. 940, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 900, 975, 960. He was unbelievable. The guy was arguably the best hitter in Major League Baseball over that stretch, maybe with the one argument being if you wanted to include Mike Trout, you could, because that's kind of the front end of it, or maybe if you wanted to include like the back end of Albert Pujols' career, sure. I think over that 2009 to 2016 stretch, it's probably Miguel Cabrera as the best overall hitter in Major League Baseball in that time. Unfortunately, it fell off of a cliff, man. Because this is what happens now that we're not in the steroid era anymore. Once you get to age 34, 35, 36, guys start to really dip. And it doesn't just happen with like a small decline normally. Normally, it's a cliff where you go from being one of the best hitters in baseball to boom, it's gone. Just completely gone, and we can't explain why.
Okay,
and
Goldie.
Exactly. That's what happened to Miguel Cabrera. He turned 34 years old, had a 725 OPS, and was never the same hitter again. Ended up basically being below league average for the remainder of his major league career. 34 to age 40, he was, if you look at the wins above replacement, a negative wins above replacement player over that stretch of time. That might be what you're looking at with Juan Soto. And I think it's worth it for a lot of these big market teams. Like if I'm the Mets, I'm doing this. If I'm the Yankees, I'm probably doing it. If I'm the Dodgers, I definitely consider it because the bat is that valuable over the course of the next, let's call it 8 to 10 years, depending on when he starts to fall off of that cliff. But this is where I think it's different than a guy like a Mookie Betts or Bryce Harper. Like I would have made the case for the Cardinals to go after one of those two guys. I did make the case for the Cardinals to go after Bryce Harper. I am not making the case and would not make the case, even if the Cardinals were in this market this offseason, I would say I'm very wary of them going after Juan Soto. I would be very concerned about what the back end of that contract would potentially do for a team like the Cardinals whenever he does fall off of that cliff. And you might get a great decade out of it, but after that, dude, there is going to be hell to pay for somebody. But a lot of these teams that are these massive markets, it's not going to be that bad. And they're going to spend $500 million on their payroll a decade from now. So whatever, dude. If we got $50 million in dead money, that's 10% of the cap. That's like paying somebody $20 million right now. Cool. We're fine. We'll figure it out. The Cardinals aren't that team. They can't just have $50 million sitting there as a dead money pool. So, Alex, where do you stand on this?
I mean, if I'm in a win now mode, I'm all in on this. Because I do think it's the generational type of offensive player that you need, and I don't really care what 8 to 10 years from now looks like if the drop off. Because if I'm in win now mode, what do we always say? Flags fly forever. Get me some type of championship within the next 3 to 5 years, and I'll worry about the other end of it. But you're right, and I'm on the same line of thinking. If I'm the Cardinals, even if I'm in the markets where I have the money and I need this type of player, I don't think this is the type of player that you build your organization around to get to that championship window.
Not in this market. This is what I want to clarify here. Like, I agree with you in St. Louis, you don't. In New York, I think you do.
Yeah.
In LA, I think you could. It's just it's a difference in you have to have the strategy of long term. We are going to continue to throw money at our problems. If you're not going to do that, I would not do this. Like Toronto, I think is potentially making a huge mistake if they think that this is going to be the thing that gets them to the promised
you
land.
don't plug this into the roster and say he is Mr. Fix-It for us. He is going to prove all things wrong and we're going to get there.
You got to continue adding around it.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to if you're not going to be willing to spend more money, because in a lot of the sense, like for a Cardinals or the Toronto Blue Jays, they sign this player and they say, cool, all done. Don't have to worry about it. We'll worry about the complementary pieces. We'll develop through the system, but here's our guy. And that type of player is Bryce Harper, is Mookie Betts, what you guys already mentioned. It's not a Juan Soto because you're relying solely on that offense. And I think when you're talking about the one guy that you plant in it and say he is Mr. Fix-It, there's got to be more to his game than that.
Yeah, I think it's much riskier than some of these propositions that we've been talking about in recent years. I think Bryce Harper was less risky. I think Mookie Betts was less risky. I think Shohei Ohtani less risky. There's some real risk in here. And I know fans don't like hearing it because you look at the numbers, and I look at the numbers, and it's like, damn, like, you're telling me the guy that's like Ted Williams of the modern day, I can't go sign that guy? Like, what's the risk? The bat, I think, is going to be really good for the next 8 to 10 years. And if you're signing him for 16, it's about what does the last 6 years of that look like when I've got a guy that is not athletic, does not play defense, and doesn't run the bases well. Like that. That should be a secondary concern, and it is a secondary concern. But for a lot of markets, I just think it is something that you have to give serious consideration to. So it's not as cut and dried as some of these other things have been. I would say this is a buyer beware situation where there's maybe like 4 markets that I think it actually makes sense for them. Like if the Red Sox are in on this, and it sounds like they really are, they better be committed to spending long term. Because if you are, this can work for you.
Same with Toronto, right?
That's why I would not do it on Toronto.
So Toronto's not going to be committed to it.
Yeah, we talked about this in the office today, just a sneak peek behind the curtain. I said, I don't understand what Toronto's doing, because are you going to commit then to Vlad Guerrero, right? They've got to lock up one of Vlad Guerrero Jr. or who's the one I'm forgetting? Bichette, thank you. Like, okay, so if I bring in Soto, sure, that first year's nice. We've got all these pieces, but what happens if those 2 guys leave in free agency? Well, now I'm stuck with a contract that, to your point, I agree with. If you're a big market team, you should be spending it. It's the more mid-tier market teams that should be wary of that. Toronto probably falls into that, in my opinion. You know, you've got to be wary of if you're going to bring him in and you don't add around him, now you end up getting stuck with that contract, and then you waste some of those prime years. Because I think the first 10 years, 8 to 10 years of that contract could end up being one of the best contracts in baseball.
Definitely.
I'm terrified of those final 5 years if it is a 15-year deal.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to monitor on who ends up getting Juan Soto and what this means for their long-term value. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we talked about this briefly with Jeremy Rutherford earlier today, Alex. I want to get your thoughts on it. The Jets have the one thing that the Blues are really missing when it comes to their forward group. How do they find it? And is that the team that this Blues team should be trying to emulate long-term? We'll get into that in a little bit. Coming up next, it's The Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alex, do you have a go-to cologne? Like one
I used
specific
to when I
cologne
was
that you use all the time?
I used to when I was younger. Now I couldn't tell you the last time I put on cologne.
T-Bone?
Nah,
You've definitely got a cologne.
Yeah,
No,
you're
a
a
Musk
You're a
kind of a
Nautica guy.
No. I'm
You're a
old
Nautica.
school. I don't know what that is. Nah, no cologne for this guy.
Have you ever used cologne?
No.
Oh God, that's why
You
you
used the Axe
stink.
body spray once upon a time.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I did not. No.
Old Spice?
Not the body spray.
T-Bone
but, yeah.
came off of a hard, grueling practice on the tennis court and had to just spray down before he went out with the honeys.
Sure. Yeah, it didn't shower, just a full body spray.
Yeah, just straight.
I can't believe once upon a time we were so stupid as kids that we were like, yeah, this is going to make me smell good.
Dude, high school, that's all it was. It was just
Disgusting. The reason why I ask is because Miller High Life is selling a new bar-inspired cologne that I thought maybe I could
that's
interest you in.
smell like BO and peanuts.
That's what
Basically.
you want to smell like when you leave the house.
What's that musk, honey? Ah, it's the bar.
Yeah, it smells like a dive bar.
You know,
Okay.
of all the things that I would want to smell like in life,
Well, that's how you pick up dates right there.
dive bar is very low on that
You
list.
smell that?
They say there is no standard definition for what a dive bar smells like,
Yeah.
but it's a you know it when you see it type of a situation. You could easily describe it as you know it when you smell
What
it.
was the comments from the newsroom and Anchorman when he put on Sex Panther? It smells like a used baby diaper.
It is going to be on a limited run. It's a $60
No ish.
bottle of the smell, the scent, the fragrance.
It's a
so to
limited
speak.
run because they're like, God, I hope we sell out of this fast so nobody else brings it up.
Yeah, so they're this is after Monkey Shoulder previously had
Can we expense this? We
a
gotta get this.
whiskey-inspired fragrance.
Oh,
No, the whiskey one would be good.
That one I could get with. I actually think I could get with this too.
well, buy a bottle.
bar.
What dive bar have you walked in? It's like, damn, this smells good.
I love a good dive bar. My
smell of it?
Some of my
The
favorite
smell of the
places
dive
in
bar.
America are dive bars. That's my go-to. I know that surprises you guys a little bit.
Do you go with your son?
Are we doing this again? Are we doing this again?
I just wanted to engage our text line, man, and let the fans in. No.
I now picture BK walking into the dive bar going,
Can I be
"This
honest?
smells great."
I don't think cologne works anymore. Now, the females listening need to let us know this. But like from a male perspective, I don't think cologne works.
I use the Aqua de Gio.
I think most colognes stink. And anytime I'm around somebody that has put too much on, I'm like, okay,
I wonder why you don't
overkill.
like him anymore.
Yeah. Trying not to be in rooms with
I
them very
actually
long.
had to buy some the other day on Amazon.
Just
and I
shower, man.
That's what I do. I accidentally purchased the aftershave. I've never used aftershave before, not once
Really?
in my entire life.
I've
Not
never
once.
Do you get the bumps when you shave though?
Occasionally, not often.
Oh, see, I get it on my neck when I have to like clean
I
that up.
certainly didn't want a fragrance one. Do you use one with a fragrance?
No,
in it?
I buy
like a
my
lotion?
aftershave from Aldi. Sure. Come on, man.
Well, when I saw this, I was like, what? It was like a pretty expensive bottle of cologne. I was like, I bought this for
Weird flex. This is a pretty expensive bottle of aftershave.
Only burned $300.
I didn't want it, and so I was like, I got to return this thing to Amazon, and they were like, hey, we don't take this for a return, man. I was like, what?
I just,
What do I do with this?
like in high school, it used to be like, oh, you just smell, you put the cologne on, the girls are interested. Now I feel like if you put cologne on, I'm like, what are you covering up?
That's
Have
fair.
you not showered for 4 days?
Did you just get out of high school gym again?
Like what are we doing with the cologne here?
Somebody said BK is way too pretentious for a dive bar. Come on, man.
That's true.
True.
You guys know my go-to beer is a Busch Light. Like,
I think that's a lie.
I do too.
See your nose growing over there right
you
now.
go pinky up where you drink. T-Bone and I, on the other
I've been to
hand.
like a brewery that BK really enjoys, and I was like, wow, this is some fancy-ish right now.
what? Side project?
Which one was it?
And then Maplewood?
Oh, no, I'm thinking, that one's a pretty good spot. I was thinking of the one in Nashville.
Oh, yeah. That place is cool.
And I was like, cucumber beers and smoked beers.
Well,
I was like, oh, my.
Hey, man, I got the full spectrum. If you,
And,
want to go to side
the ones
project, I
that are
got you. You
made,
guys
like-
want to go to a dive bar? I got you.
The ones that are made for like plants that are in some bottle that looks like washed up on shore.
I just can't get over the fact that BK's weird flexing over here that he spends a lot of money on aftershave.
No, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to say I tried to buy
know, when I go and
cologne.
clip it
That's why
later.
you
I
walked
just
in.
told you I've never used
You
aftershave.
walked into the sports office and you're like, "Hey guys, you smell that? You smell that? It's $500."
No, it was
I
like,
wonder why he kept leaning
was
forward
like
in his chair
$50.
today.
He kept leaning towards us.
I would never spend $5 on aftershave, much less $50 on aftershave, and I accidentally did.
That's like
I didn't know what to do when I couldn't return it.
aftershave / cologne is like mouthwash to me. Mouthwash doesn't really do it.
No, you don't use mouthwash?
You don't use mouthwash?
No,
Interesting.
it's you brush your teeth, you floss your teeth, you're good.
Oh, I'll do
mouthwash is just.
mouthwash.
Tell your dentist that next time you go
I
in.
do. She's told me that.
And she says, don't use...
She said you don't need it.
Okay.
She said the brushing and the flossing is what does it. The mouthwash is just chemicals you put in there to make it smell good for a little bit of time.
Don't think that's entirely true. To each their own, I suppose.
The dentist told me.
Dentist told me the opposite.
9 out of 10 dentists confirm. Don't listen to me though. I got fake teeth on the bottom side.
I don't know about it. Like, this is like the... you want to get political.
Damn it!
No.
Come on, man.
This is like the food pyramid that they told us for like
Oh, yeah, that
100
food
years
pyramid was a
real.
joke.
And then you realize, like, this nonsense.
Yeah.
All of this nonsense.
Half of that food pyramid was like, probably should be eating all this.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes.
That was
we'll
political,
talk about
though.
that further on our politics podcast that we're going to start up next year.
Coming soon, probably. Not.
I won't say what we were.
That was like when Joey was listing off the lyrics to Rubber Band Man, and he stopped right before Rubber Band Man. Wow, now, whoa, nope. T-Bone, that was cute. That was cute.
All right, coming up.
Our politics
The
podcast.
Jets have the things that the Blues are currently lacking. We'll discuss it next on BK and Ferrari.
So what do the Winnipeg Jets have that the St. Louis Blues do not? With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hint.
Shut up, T-Bone.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, the Winnipeg Jets are one of the best teams in the NHL right now. Now, they've been on a bit of a skid lately, but they started, 15-1?
I think it was 16-1.
On the season. They are doing this year what Vancouver did a year ago, where it's like, whoa! And then everybody says that they're a regression candidate, and it's like, yeah, they're going to regress to not being 15-1, but they're still really
Thought
good.
they were going 80-2.
Yeah. So that's probably not going to be the case, but they're really good nonetheless. Alex, when I look at them, I see a team that built themselves in the way that the Blues want to. They are a pack mentality. We're not going to have a single superstar on the team. You could argue Hellebuck might be that, but goalies, it's pretty rare, are a consistent superstar in this league anymore. There's not really any one guy that a casual hockey fan would be able to identify in a lineup, I don't think. Not a single one of them on their team. And yet they're really freaking good and have been for a few years now. The thing they have that the Blues have to try to find, and I don't know where they do it, but they've got to find it, is Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor is a consistent 35-plus goal scorer. You just write it in pen every single season. He has a shooting percentage of 15% in his NHL career. Legit top-line winger. This is the guy that we've been talking about here in St. Louis that the Blues simply do not have. Last year, he had 34 goals in 65 games. The year before that, 31 goals, 80 points. And the year before that, 47 goals in 79 games. Do you see anything else, Alex, that the Jets have that you're like, man, Blues don't have that? That's what they're missing.
They got strength down the middle. I think that's the other thing, and I think that's what a lot of talented teams have is just dominance down the middle. It's what the Blues had for that cup run to where it was from the top down. It was Ryan O'Reilly, it was Braden Shen, it was Tyler Bozak, and Oscar Sundqvist. You were solid right down the middle. And this team's got Mark Scheifele, although he's playing wing for some reason right now, which is just wild. They've got Gabe Vilardi, they've got Cole Perfetti, they've got Adam Lowry. They've got strength down the middle. But I think the Blues are going to be in a position where they will have that in a couple of years with a Robert Thomas, with a Dalibor Dvorsky, with some of these other younger players that they have. And, of course, you'll still have the veteran of Braden Shen. The missing piece right now is Kyle Connor. It's a finisher. It's a 40-goal scorer. I don't believe Kyrou has the same ilk that Kyle Connor has, because every single time Kyle Connor steps on the ice, it's like you assume he's going to find the back of the net. And right now, although Jordan Kyrou is still putting up points and a little bit of snake bitten, he's not producing to the same light. But if you just build from the back out the way most teams do, in my opinion, everybody's going to say Connor Hellebuck is the best, and I can't disagree with you, but in the postseason, I'd rather have Jordan Binnington. But overall, you've got a guy that night in and night out, as Mike Liut told us yesterday, you know what to expect. That's a number one goaltender. Defensively, I don't think this team is very dominant defensively. They've got some really good players. Josh Morrissey, in my opinion, is probably the best defenseman that they've got. But I could say Philip Broberg can do what Josh Morrissey is doing, and he's 6 years younger. And then the forward side, you've got depth. They've got a pack mentality. They've got a number one center. What they have that you don't have is a Kyle Connor. You need a dude who, when he steps on the ice every single game, teams are saying, how do we stop this player?
I think it opens up everything else. Because suddenly now you've got your version of Kyle Connor, whoever that may be. Let's call it in this scenario, Frady Frashuk. In this scenario, and then, I've
heard Frady Frashuk is pretty good. Also, really ballsy there, going with the F with Kachuk. It's fine though.
Got the fra.
Yeah, you emphasize that. You're going to pull a T-bone in the last segment.
At least he caught it too.
You look at Scheifele, it's like, okay, could that be what Robert Thomas is?
I think absolutely. Now, he's not going to put up 40 goals like Scheifele did a couple of years ago, but I think Thomas is a 100-point player, and Scheifele is gotten close to
Steelers, Vilardi, could you have that in Booch, Kyrou? Sure. I think you go down the list from there. It's like, okay, the Blues have all of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're missing the dude. Mm-hmm. And they're missing the dude that can get you a consistent 35 to 40 goals every single season. Now, the hard part is Kyle Connor doesn't grow on trees, man. You can't just go out there and assume. I know earlier today we talked with Jeremy Rutherford. He said, well, maybe they have that in Jimmy Snuggerud. Maybe they've got that in Dvorsky. Who knows? Maybe. The odds are that they don't. The odds are very much in favor of they don't currently have anybody like Kyle Connor in their system. There's nobody coming. This is a move that they're going to have to make either via free agency or via trade. And that's where things get really hard for Army. And this is why I think 2024 and 2025 are so important for the current internal roster. They've got to start making decisions within the next calendar year on who the long-term building blocks are. Is Bolduc one of those guys? That's why I want to see Bolduc as often as humanly possible this year. And if not, maybe he's a part of the trade that gets you the next Kyle Connor. Like, that's what the next 60 games or so for me are all about is, okay, building this core, which I think we kind of know right now a lot of the players that are going to be a part of it. Continue adding as many of those as you can to the mix, and then start making some decisions on, okay, who's going to have to be the odd man out? Because there will be players that you thought were a part of the long-term core that eventually have to get pushed out.
Yeah, I think before you get there, they're going to look at this as Jimmy Snuggerud's our Kyle Connor. And whether you believe it or not, he's got the shot that they will say resembles a Kyle Connor. I mean, look, Connor scored 35 goals in the 1 year that he played in college. Now, Jimmy Snuggerud has never touched 30 goals in college, but you're talking 3 years in college versus 1 year in college. Kyle Connor played with some really good players right away. Like his first full season with the Winnipeg Jets where he scored 31 goals, he was playing with Blake Wheeler, who was a consistent 80-point player, and he was also playing with Mark Scheifele, who we've all just said is a number one centerman. I don't know if Snuggerud gets there. Snuggerud has the shot to be like a Kyle Connor, and the rest you just have to figure out. So the way that the top six is resembled for the Winnipeg Jets in terms of the Nikolai Ehlers, the Kyle Connors, the Mark Scheifeles, the Gabe Velardis, you have a lot of those guys. The Thomas, the Kyrus, the Booches, the Jake Neighbors, the Dylan Holloways, the Dalibor Dvorskis.
Yeah, you've got all of the middle six forwards you could possibly ask
You
for.
just need to get that finisher. And once they see what Snuggerud looks like at the NHL level, and look, this isn't like a snap your fingers and all of a sudden he's a 30-goal scorer. It took Kyle Connor. It did. It took him 1 year. But remember, he played 50 games in the AHL, 20 games at the end of his first season, and then the next year.
To be fair, though, at the age that we currently... Yeah. He's 21 years old in his first full season in the NHL, which is what Jimmy Snuggerud is now.
Yeah.
So if we're going 1 for 1, if he is truly Kyle Connor...
And you might
hit
be
the ground running.
And
this year is his age 20 season that Kyle Connor had, where he gets 20 games, he gets a cup of tea here, and then boom, next year, let's go.
And you might be
goal time.
You might be a year late just because you play a couple of games this year, and then what does it look like next year? But when they figure out what Snuggerud is he a middle six or is he a guy who can be a 40-goal scorer? That's when they veer in another direction and say, okay, well, we got to go get our finisher. And then that's when I think the puzzle will be officially complete for them. And they'll say, now we have to go out there and compete with this roster.
If the Blues are on the verge of being a playoff team this year, or potentially are a playoff team next year, they shouldn't wait for that. They should push. In my opinion, if a guy becomes available, I'm not waiting on Snuggerud to become that player. I'm just going to say, I don't think he's going to be that guy. Let's go get somebody that is. That's the way that I would operate personally. The Athletic doesn't think that's going to be possible. They put out a piece earlier today, Alex.
Sounds like Dom's back again.
It actually was not Dom, believe it or not. No, it was not. I think it was James Myrtle, who I believe you had on the Blues pregame show recently. So that was a bold decision.
Probably a reason why he put this out after he joined me.
He has the Blues as the 31st ranked cap situation among teams across the NHL. What? They are currently committed to $86 million for their 2025 cap already, without making any moves going into next season. Their UFAs are Suter and Foxa. They don't have a whole lot coming off. That is the least amount of cap space of any team in the NHL. Now, that does not take into account Torrey Krug being on LTIR potentially. That is an important distinction here. But if Torrey Krug, for whatever reason, doesn't end up on LTIR next year, it's not my assumption, but let's operate the way that he was. They have very little cap space going into next year. Alex, I wholeheartedly disagree with this because I am taking into account the Torrey Krug situation, and I don't think he's going to play another game for the Blues. I expect him to be on LTIR the remainder of this contract, which means they have $10 million in cap space going into next year, which is a perfectly fine spot to be in given where the Blues are at in their respective build. Do you have concerns about cap-wise, where the Blues are at and how much flexibility they could potentially have?
No, I don't. I don't agree, surprise, surprise, that this is the second worst salary cap situation in the NHL. Like, there are a lot worse off teams. The New York Rangers, in my opinion, are a worse off team than where the Blues are at right now. They've got like 3 guys that they got to sign, including a dude who's probably going to make $12 to $13 million with about $10 million in cap space next season.
They had the Rangers. Keep scrolling up.
Okay, so they're going to be... What? Up?
Keep scrolling up. Keep scrolling up. I'm just going to search for this.
Bleep off. There's no way.
They were at 14.
No, that's where the Blues should be.
They have UFAs: Igor Shesterkin, Jonathan Quick, Ryan Lindgren. $11 million to spend. And $16 million in RFAs.
I was saying Shesterkin wants like $11 million.
Yeah, and they have,
So they're at $83 million when you include their RFAs, which will put them at like $3 million, basically where the Blues are at, and they need Shesterkin.
And they're trying to trade a guy who's making $6.5 million, who's got a modified no trade, and trading a guy who's $8 million, who's got a full no trade. Like,
can I read you their write up on this? This is just amazing. This tells you everything you need to know. So they have $11 million in projected cap space, and if the cap goes up to $94 million and Shesterkin wants what, $12 million or more, good luck to GM Chris Drury on that.
but yet the Blues are the second worst cap team. Like, wait a minute, what? Somebody ranked these and then just didn't actually check their work. Like, I don't. Yes, the Blues are tied up with salary contracts right now in terms of long term, but some of these guys that have no trade protection become modified no trades next season. And guess what? When the salary cap goes up, more teams have to hit the floor, and then more teams are willing to take on contracts with those modified no trades. People will cite Brandon Saad, they'll cite Nick Leddy and say, oh, you got to get off these contracts. First of all, I don't think they're as bad as people are making them out to be. $94 million in cap space with a $4 million cap hit is what? Like less than 1%?
It's about 1.5%.
So you're putting that towards your salary cap right now as a third-line winger. Fine.
Well, 4%-ish. It's okay. Go ahead. Sorry. I was doing math in my head real quick.
I'm still doing math.
$94 million
Real
cap.
answer is it's less than 5%.
Okay. Well, I'm still doing math in my head. Regardless, like they've got the pieces in place that are young, that are on entry-level contracts. They have other guys coming in that are going to be on entry-level contracts. I don't view this as the second-worst salary cap team. And the way that the write-up is framed of saying that the Blues can't really navigate their roster if they need to make adjustments to try and start winning, what have the last couple of years have been for this team? They offer sheeted two guys from Edmonton that have been mainstays on this roster. 4 years ago, they traded for Pavel Buchnevich and basically gave up nothing. We're really going to sit here and still doubt Doug Armstrong's ability to navigate this roster how he chooses?
Also, it all comes back to the Krug money. If Krug's on the books, they are in a really tough spot. But he's not going to be on the books, guys. Like let's just be honest about it. The Blues knew that whenever they went to go get Broberg and Holloway. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. There would have been no reason to. So I don't think that we need to worry about this. They have $10 million next year in the offseason. They really don't need like just rosterable players. They need stars, potentially, or a star, potentially.
Which are hopefully on entry-level contracts, in their opinion.
Or the $8 million that you could use to go get a star. Like, if they need that money available, they could trade Brandon Saad for that roster spot. There's $4 million. Now you've got $14 million towards the cap at a minimum. Guess what? Stars cost about 12. So you are under the cap to be able to go get what is necessary. They're in a totally fine spot with their cap. It's not perfect. Like, there are teams definitely that I would say are in a better spot with their cap situation than what the Blues currently have. I would rather not have long-term commitments to Justin Falk and to Braden Shen the way that they have them right now. But if you got a couple of bad, like relatively bad contracts on your books, you're doing okay in the modern game, especially with the way that this cap is expected to spike over the next couple of seasons. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, Better to Forget It here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Let's start out with this, guys, how we opened the show today. Bet it or forget it. Ryan Helsley is on the Cardinals roster on opening day of 2025.
I'm going to bet it. I don't agree with it. I think he should be traded, but I'm going to bet it. I think the Cardinals are going to view this as, well, we didn't get the return that we warranted, and we feel like he's going to be good for our team, and we'll try and win early on in the season. And I think it's going to be a disaster, but I'll still bet it.
I'll bet it. I don't think they're going to make the move in the offseason, whether it's because they want to appease the fan base or it is there's 5 or 6 other closers on the market right now. If we hold on to them, there's a chance that some of those names come off near the trade deadline, not because they've been traded, but because their teams are contenders. So I would bet it. My guess is he's going to be the closer on opening day.
I'm betting this as well. He had an interesting quote yesterday that was posted from John Denton. You guys should check out the piece if you didn't read it last night. He said, quote, this is from Ryan Helsley. They say they love having me in St. Louis. With the way that things have gone over the last year, they like me where I'm at financially, but they don't know if they want to keep me long term. Now with Mo leaving, that's something that is going to have to be talked about too, but we haven't really crossed that bridge. I know, and they know this will be something that has to be decided from a business standpoint, end quote. Is there any scenario where you guys would consider extending Ryan Helsley?
No.
No. I wouldn't pay a Bolton arm.
And by the time you're ready to win, he's not going to be the same player.
What if he's willing to take $15 million a year?
No.
Nope.
$12 million a year?
No.
Nope. $10 million a year?
No.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
He can go get his money elsewhere.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do $12 million a year?
No. I just don't want to, because it's going to be probably, what, a 3-4 year deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he'd get 5, but 3 to 4 years. Bullpen arms are too volatile, man. I ain't giving a guy $12 million.
How wild is that, man? You won't give a superstar 13 years, but you'll give a closer 5-year
We were talking
deal.
about this before the game today. Or before the game.
Before the game? What game?
This is
the
our
Cardinals game?
Before the show today. I think relievers have become like running backs in the NFL, where like for the most part, I'm unwilling to pay running backs. There are exceptions. Saquon Barkley, guy that I would pay for. That's a game changer, right? Christian McCaffrey, I know it hasn't gone exactly as planned this year, but he completely changed the trajectory of that 49ers offense when he was inserted into the lineup. I would pay Christian McCaffrey. Derrick Henry, I'm paying that guy. There are very few, though, that I am willing to spend that kind of money on. I think relievers are similar in that regard. There are not a lot of them that I'm willing to pay, but there are some that I'd be willing to pay. This is one that I'm less definitive on it than you guys are. I would consider it if I'm in the Cardinals' shoes. Like, Raisel Iglesias got a 4-year, $58 million deal from the Atlanta Braves. If he came to me and said, would you be willing to do this? I at least have to have a meeting about that. I would think about it. I don't know that I would for sure do it, but I would think about it. And that would be taking precedent over this upcoming year's contract. So it would be basically a 3-year extension on top of what you have for next year. I would consider it. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, in or out, the Blues will be in on Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen, or Brock Besser this offseason.
In.
Those are the 3
I'll bet it.
big names.
Yeah.
Did I say in or out?
Yeah.
All good, man. Same
This
segment,
is
just
totally different
packaging.
game.
No, this one's sponsored by Circa Sports Illinois.
Yeah.
I messed that up. Bet it or forget it. Blues will be in on one of Marner, Rantanen, or Brock Besser.
I'm betting it. I think Army's going to get aggressive. He clearly views this as a playoff team. They might get close this year, and if they do, I think he's going to insert a star into the lineup, and then boom, you've got your top 6 ready to go for next year. I don't know that they'll land him, but I think they're going to try.
Yeah, that's where I am.
You're not getting Rantanen. I'll say that on the front end.
Oh, boo.
You're not getting Rantanen.
I saw something the other day. He wants $15 million a year.
And he should get it.
Good for him.
He should get it.
Can Colorado do that?
No. Well, yeah, because Landeskogle's just on LTIR probably for the rest of time.
By the way, speaking of LTIR Kings, Mark Stone's skating a little early if we're going to hold out till
No,
the
they got to make it look like he's coming back. He'll play a game, and then it'll be like, oh, man, he's just banged up and got to be there.
I'll say
what I would spend for Mikko Rantanen.
I'll forget it.
What I would
actually.
do for Mikko Rantanen.
I will forget it because I haven't seen Army sign a superstar yet, right? And they are more of a build on pack mentality, and I think they're going to continue to build that way. That's why I can't see them going out there and making this big splash that I think they should make, because I do think this pack mentality building model kind of works, but I think you need that dude.
Would Brock Besser spark your fancy? 28 years old.
I don't know if he's a star.
Scored 40 goals last year.
Yeah, he definitely is interesting to me. We've talked about him in the past. My concern is, okay, he had 40 goals. 18, 23, 23, 16, 26. Like, which one of these is not like the others? It's very clear.
Typically, you go with the trend, not the one-off.
For sure. He has 6 already this season. He might have just, found something. He might have become a new player at the age of 26, which is possible, and now he's just entered his prime. So I'm at least interested. I'm very curious to see what the price would be on Brock Besser. Like, if we're talking $8 million, $9 million,
probably, because he's at
I'm willing
6'5"
to do.
now.
Am I willing to do 10 to 12? No, I'm not willing to go there.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Kevin O'Connell is the best value bet on the board for Coach of the Year in the NFL.
Haven't looked at the value. Can you tell me some of the odds?
So the current odds right now, your favorite, Dan Campbell, ridiculous, plus 120. Mike Tomlin and Kevin O'Connell at plus 400. Sean Payton at plus 500. Jim Harbaugh plus 550. Then you got Dan Quinn plus 1,200. Sean McDermott plus 1,400.
I would say Mike Tomlin's a better odds than Kevin O'Connell.
McDermott's the best odds. The reason why is because there's a real chance they get the number 1 seed. And in that scenario, when you traded off all of the guys and sold off all the guys this offseason, and then you bring back just a bunch of also-rans as your wide receivers, and you become a better team, and you end up with a number 1 seed in the AFC this year with Josh Allen potentially being in the running for the MVP, I would say the best odds there right now are McDermott. And I would take those today, because if something changes over the next couple of weeks, you're going to want to have those odds and not whatever they become over the next few weeks. That would be my answer. So forget it.
Yeah.
I would bet it.
Oh, I said mine already. Sorry. No, mine would be Tomlin.
Oh.
If you're putting Kevin O'Connell, mine would be Tomlin, because I think Tomlin's going to have 11, 12, maybe 13 wins this season.
The reason I say O'Connell is because, I find it unbelievable that Campbell is even in this conversation, because what has he done, right? They did met expectations this year.
They have been without their best defensive player, though.
Sure, but I would still argue they should be in the top tier contender in the NFC even without him, and they are.
I think it's kind of crazy. We never do this for Andy Reid or for Bill Belichick or for Mike Tomlin in the past. When those teams lived up to expectations, it was just living up to expectations.
The 2 guys to me that should really be in this conversation, or 3, I think McDermott should be, because I think you're spot on with everything that you said.
Thanks, man.
I think the other 2 should be Kevin O'Connell, because he has Sam Darnold at quarterback, and everybody thought they were going to be terrible. And then it's Sean Payton, because nobody understood what they were doing with Bo Nix. And it feels unfair to say this about Mike Tomlin, but Mike Tomlin's doing what Mike Tomlin does, right? Everybody expects he's going to be above 500. Now, I would totally listen to the argument if they've exceeded expectations. This is just a typical Mike Tomlin year for me. So
I'd like to throw Jim Harbaugh into the mix.
The reason I think that hurts him is because he's got Herbert. The same reason that I think McDermott's getting killed on these odds, he's got Josh Allen. And I think that's the reason that these guys are being held back, compared to when you look at Mike Tomlin with Russell Wilson, Kevin O'Connell with Sam Darnold, Sean Payton with Bo Nix. That's the reason their odds are propped up. But
Herbert wins by year prior to the season: 7, 9, 10, 5. Now he's got 8 already so far this year.
Sure, but my counter to that would be even through all those years that you just read off of his win total there being at 7, not once did we ever kind of go, not a top 10 quarterback.
Agreed. But that speaks to coaching. The fact that they're now winning games speaks to coaching, because previously it was a coaching issue. It was never the quarterback. And now the coaching is good, and they start winning. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Bet it or forget it, guys. Luther Burden goes down as the better receiver at Mizzou than Jeremy Maclin. I'm forgetting this.
Forget it.
He was an awesome receiver, and this is no disrespect whatsoever to Luther Burden, but Jeremy Maclin was the better player at Mizzou. Burden could go on to have a better NFL career. That's possible, but forget it.
Yeah, I'm forgetting this one as well. I still remember the games Jeremy Maclin was a part of, and I personally feel like 5, 6, 7 years from now, I don't know how much I'll remember the Luther Burden years.
Oh,
yeah. I kind of agree with that. I would forget it. I don't think, Burden didn't have as flashy numbers as Maclin. Burden's numbers this year were disappointing.
Last year, though, he had last year was a really good
last
season.
year was a really good year for him. But, when I'm thinking, in whole, when you go back and look, 5 years from now, and you go, man, that Luther Burden, if he is a good NFL player, man, what were his numbers at Mizzou? You're going to look at, his freshman year and his junior year and go, whoa, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Kind of a donut there.
He was top 5 in the SEC in receiving yards this year, by the way.
this year?
God,
That is shocking.
the receiving yards was terrible.
It was a really down year in the SEC when it came to this is the quarterback thing that we've talked about, right? Like there's just not a lot of great quarterbacks around the league, and that meant a really down year for wide receivers. Top 5 in receptions, excuse me. Yards, he had 670 this season.
Yeah, and like the other thing that I think will hurt Burden is, does he have a big moment that you can remember?
Last year, Florida, 4th and 17.
I don't know if I remember that one, but again, that was kind of I don't know what the word would be. At that point, I wasn't really focused on Mizzou because you're back into the year. It doesn't really matter. They weren't really playing for a whole lot outside of getting to the Cotton Bowl. But
last year against Mizzou, Kansas State, he had another one. Like last year, he had some serious moments, and this year he should have against South Carolina, and then they blew it at the end. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It, guys. Bet it or forget it. Dalibor Dvorsky will end up having a better career than Bedard or Mishkov. I'm going to forget that. I think Mishkov would be my number 1 pick on that.
As much as people are down on Bedard, I still think Bedard is going to be a very good player. So I would be out on both, or I would forget it on both of these. Give it again.
I would forget it as well. I don't think he'll be better than Mishkov. And like even Bedard, I agree. Down years, I still think he's going to be really good.
Better to forget it, guys. There will be a college football playoff championship game this year that does not include an SEC team. The CFP championship game will be played, and there will be no SEC teams in.
I'm going to forget this one. I think it'll be Oregon versus. I don't trust them, but I think it'd be Oregon versus Georgia.
I think Oregon, Texas. That's mine.
What I was leaning.
Texas showed me what I needed to see against A&M. I say
just
that.
not with their best quarterback, though.
You guys saw what happened when they put Arch Manning in there.
One run, one touchdown. I will forget this because I don't think it's going to be 2 Big Ten teams. I think Oregon is by far the best team, and I would genuinely be shocked if they don't win the national championship. But I don't trust Ohio State. I don't trust Penn State, and I don't trust Indiana. Now, granted, I don't trust a lot of those SEC teams, but that's why I'm not going to say the SEC's not going to get into the conference championship.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind, but coming up next, we got another update on the Nolan Arenado sweepstakes, and we'll pass it along next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It's the time of the year, which means the Christmas trees are out, which means you need to head on down to that destination off of Chippewa to get the perfect combination of frozen custard and Christmas trees. First off, they got a limited time offer right now to where you could buy 3 quarts of Ted Drew's famous frozen custard and you get a jumbo container of toppings for free, and so many different things that you can go through with the flavors and types of frozen custard that you can bring home with you, freeze, have for the holiday get-togethers. But while you're out there, make sure you walk across the parking lot and check out the Christmas tree lot where they've got fragrant firs, pine trees, wide selection. They've got Dottie trees, which is named in honor of Ted's wife. Plus, you can get Christmas wreaths, Christmas decorations as well. All of those are there for you at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. So start those family traditions. Get on out to Ted Drew's. By the way, this Sunday, December 8th from 12 to 2, Santa's going to be there, so you can get on out there for that as well. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tender Energy with a Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Winnipeg Jets. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. And Joey will join Chris Garber for Puck Drop at 7. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heat and air conditioning dealer.
This is a special moment here on BK and Ferrario. Mike Ryder is never on the YouTube.
Look at this guy.
There he is right
Never.
there.
Looks great.
YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. It's great to have him in.
Doing his
Good to
best
see the
8-mile impression.
big boss in here. Always appreciate him stopping by. All right. So, Alex, we got a little bit of a Nolan Arenado update.
Oh, has he been traded already?
No. One came from Katie Wu, who wrote over on The Athletic earlier today that the Cardinals are listening on offers for Steven Matz and Ryan Helsley. We knew that, but that is the latest on those. The other piece of this was that she expects stuff to start happening within the next week to 10 days. That's roughly when the winter meetings are going to be taking place for the Cardinals. That could see some movement there. There are a few dominoes, though, that really need to fall before Nolan Arenado is traded in any capacity. You're going to need to see Alex Bregman signed. I believe you're going to need to see Willie Adames signed, most likely. And then the Alec Bohm thing is just kind of out there in the ether, and it's possible that a team that is interested in Nolan Arenado would also be interested in Alec Bohm. I think those are the biggest pieces, the biggest dominoes that need to fall before Arenado is traded.
And as we know, with Major League Baseball offseason, things go fast when it comes to those guys.
Absolutely.
Dominoes fall very fast.
So there was also this piece from Kylie McDaniel over on ESPN.com, where they did a bunch of different, hey, this guy potentially could be traded. Where should he go? And Kylie McDaniel, when they asked, hey, who should the Cardinals trade Nolan Arenado to, he said the Toronto Blue Jays. He then continued, if the Cardinals pay down Arenado's deal about $15 million, that would roughly be the market rate for a veteran third baseman of his ilk. He then continued and said St. Louis could opt to pay the deal down another $10 or $15 million and get a real prospect in return. So he says of the $75 million, if the Cardinals eat $15 million of it, basically even money, you don't get much in return, but you get off of the $60 million. If they're willing to eat about $25 to $30 million of that 75, so it's a $3 or $50 million deal for whoever ends up getting Nolan Arenado, you could get a real prospect in return. And this is going to be an interesting test for the Cardinals whenever these negotiations are taking place next week, Alex. If I'm another team, that is exactly what I'm saying to them.
Yep.
I'm not giving you a damn thing. I know you need that playing time on your roster. I know you want to see Donovan and Gorman and Burleson and yes, T-Bone, so JC get these opportunities.
He won't fall for that.
That's Luke and Baker.
And if you have Arenado there, that ain't happening. So I know if we eat this money, you are going to be happy about that. But if you eat some of this money, I will give you a prospect in return. That's how the negotiations are going to go. Do you think the Cardinals are going to be willing to eat $15 to $25 million, Alex?
No, I don't, because I don't think this team is going to be willing to eat that. I think this team is too prideful to where they'd say, well, we'll just keep him. Nolan Arenado's a great player. We'll just keep him on our roster. And then things really get torn up with what their plans for the future are. But I think you're right. I think a lot of teams are going to call BS with John Mozeliak's comments of, oh, we're not just going to give this guy away. You've got to give us a reasonable return for it. Nope, not for all of the money. It's going to have to be you eating $30 million. And I know this team has eaten money in the past in terms of just getting rid of guys via trade or just letting them go. I don't see that happening with Nolan Arenado. I think this team is too prideful. I think John Mozeliak's very prideful, and I think he's going to look at this as, no, Nolan Arenado's a great player. We'll bank on him having a bounce-back season, and then we'll try again then.
I think Mo's willing to do it. Where it comes down to is what's ownership willing to do. Because we've seen Mo kind of get creative and pull off some deals, like moving on from Fowler, moving on from Mike Leake. So, like, there's at least somewhat of a little bit
Johnny
of a pass.
Peralta, it wasn't a trade, but
Sure.
just saying, you know what, this isn't working.
Yeah.
That was only 1 year, but...
And maybe that is, well, that's the caveat here. Maybe that is a sign of, hey, ownership has done it in the past. Maybe they're willing to do it again. But that's where I think it gets interesting, and especially because it's kind of the old school Cardinals model. What it was, hey, we need stars because stars attract people to the ballpark. And well, if they're talking about appeasing to the fan base and what we talked about earlier, potentially, well, would you want to do that? Would you trade Ryan Helsley? Would that make the fan base upset to where maybe they're, we're operating of trying to keep them happy? Well, if that's the case, like, Arenado's still a star, whether you think he is or not. He still is a star. He still is kind of the face of a franchise type player. And if that's the case, I can see where ownership says, I don't know if we want to eat a ton of money to get rid of this guy and just sell him off for a prospect that we may not end up seeing in return. So that's where I think it gets interesting, because I think Mo knows from a baseball ops perspective, along with Chaim Bloom from a baseball ops perspective, makes all the sense in the world. Trade away a guy while we're in the midst of a retool. We can get those 600 plate appearances for one of our younger guys that will be starting at third base now every single day. But from an ownership perspective is where I find it interesting, because you will be eating a significant portion of his salary.
Yeah, I felt differently about this a few weeks ago than I do today. Prior to the news about the RSN situation with Valley Sports Midwest, prior to us feeling like they're on a pretty stable footing right now with their money situation heading into next season, I didn't think there was any chance in hell they were going to be eating any of this money. I thought the priority was, dude, get this guy off of my baseball team and make sure that I don't pay that $30 million next year. Like, whatever you've got to do it. And if that means getting basically nothing in return, cool, great. Let's get a player to be named later, and we'll just get off of the money. I thought that was the priority a month or two ago. I don't know that I necessarily feel that way today. I think now the priority is getting those at-bats. And if you can, maximizing the return. And I'll be curious to see where is that equilibrium, and how does Bill DeWitt Jr. view this? Because Mo, I'm sure, would like to get the best return possible for Arenado, and that means paying as much down as he possibly can. It eventually will be an ownership decision. Because I think I feel confident at this point, Mo will be able to find a suitor for Nolan Arenado that Arenado is willing to go to. And I feel confident at this point that you'll be able to get something in return from that team. Maybe not a huge top 100 prospect or anything. I wouldn't expect that for Nolan Arenado, but you'll be able to get something in return, as long as ownership checks off. And that's the piece. That last piece is what I'm just uncertain of. I think it's more likely today than it was a month ago, but I'm not at 100% by any stretch of the imagination. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. One of the big stories in Major League Baseball today is about a crazy rule that the league is apparently considering. We'll talk about that, give you our thoughts on it coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, tonight is the college football playoff rankings reveal, and that means there's going to be some bets to be placed, and now is the time where you're probably going to get the best odds on those over on the Circa Sports app of the state of Illinois. Do it before the rankings are revealed tonight. You got Texas plus 475. You got Tennessee at 23-1. You got Indiana at 60-1. It's kind of like the top end of the spectrum all the way down to your long shot with Indiana. You're getting better odds over on Circa. Those same odds for those teams, Texas, Tennessee, and Indiana over on FanDuel, plus 380, 18-1, and 40-1. 60-1 odds on Indiana over on Circa, 40-1 over on FanDuel. There's one place we're betting. It's over with the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois.
Whether it's those future bets that BK's telling you to put money down because Circa's keeping as little money as possible on those large bets, which is great for you, or it's just those tight money line splits. Heck, go put a parlay together for tonight's Blues game. I like the Blues on the money line. I also like the under. If you want to parlay it up, bring in the most money possible thanks to Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
You can always check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where the Graveyard Chat is available to you. Also, the Fast Lane will be coming up at 2 o'clock. You can check them out on YouTube as well. You can check them out like right after our show ends. Boom. You can get ready to go. Wait in the waiting room for the Fast Lane as their show begins. All right, Alex. So there's a piece that was posted over on The Athletic. It got a lot of run, and it's from Jason Stark. This is an idea that's been out there for a really long time. I used to listen to the Lebitard show growing up, and one of the guys on it is Stugatz. Mm-hmm. His idea, literally 15 years ago, was to have this idea of the golden at-bat. And the premise sounds incredibly silly, but it's fun. It's a fun, novel concept that I never thought was actually going to gain any traction, but it's a fun thing to theorize.
But
right?
here we are.
So this was posted over in The Athletic, and apparently it's been bandied about by, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball.
Wait, a good idea to somebody?
And the idea is this. What if a team could choose one at-bat in every game and send its best hitter to the plate, even if it wasn't that guy's turn to hit? That's the golden at-bat concept in a nutshell. So in other words, it's a pinch hitter, but it's somebody that could have already been in your starting lineup, and they pinch hit for a guy that's somewhere else. So like 8th inning, big spot, bases loaded, 2 outs. Instead of the Cardinals having Thomas Sajaci coming to the plate,
Curious what you're
boom,
gonna
here
say.
comes Wilson Contreras.
Oh, okay. That's good.
like that's the idea of this. This is never going to happen. They're not going to do this. And the idea that it's like gaining some traction is nonsense. They're not going to do this. This was a trial balloon that they wanted to throw out there and see, is there actually going to be like a positive response to this? The answer is no. It's been a resounding, everybody hates this idea by Rob Manfred, except for me. I think this is awesome.
Get the hell out of here.
I think it would be so cool.
You've got to be kidding me.
Can you imagine? It's the World Series between like the Dodgers and I don't know, the Yankees. And in the 8th inning, you've got an opportunity to see like, who are the Yankees going with here? Are they going with Judge or are they going with Soto or the Dodgers? Who do you go with? Do you go with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, or Shohei Ohtani? Like, yeah, instead of Tommy Edman coming to the plate, I want to see one of those guys coming up to the plate in the biggest spot possible. Just just once, just one time. I like the idea.
No, this is stupid. You know what this is? This is
I'm alone on this, though. I'm one of literally like five people in America, and apparently that includes Rob Manfred that are in favor of
That's
this.
not a good group to be in. This screams Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred is realizing that people don't like the product right now, and they're saying, what can we do to get people back? You know where this is picking up traction? Pittsburgh, where there's nobody coming to baseball games. Like, what if we had the Golden Era ball and we just put somebody in the batter's box to make a difference? This is a terrible idea.
So the biggest issue that they have with this is like one of many. Let's say the number 9 hitter's coming up, right? And Shohei Ohtani's supposed to lead off or he's supposed to come up next. And they decide, you know what? There's 2 outs. We're going to get Shohei Ohtani up to bat now. We're going to use him with the Golden at bat, and he's also the leadoff hitter in this scenario. So what do you do if he like hits a double? Do you like put the 9-hole hitter to now stand on second base while Shohei Ohtani then walks back to the plate?
And like, do you lose the player
at bat?
Like because you're using that play, he just goes back to his normal spot.
I guess that's how
it's
it would
like
ghost runner at second, and then Shohei goes back to the plate to hit again.
That's exactly what
that's
the 9-hole hitter that did not hit for himself would then be at second.
Is this Major League Baseball, or is this
like
8th grade
softball.
pickup softball?
Yeah, softball. The rule is that everybody can re-enter. Essentially,
I kind of like it.
There are some aspects that I do find interesting because, like, you could get that matchup that you're talking about. When do you use it? Everybody would say, oh, well, you used it in the 9th. Well, sometimes you've got momentum in like the 7th inning, and you're going against a worse reliever.
Dude, the manager is back. Everybody tells me they want the manager to matter. Hey, you want to know how the manager starts to really matter? Is this.
And like it wasn't this case because Ollie did it while he was on his bench. But remember the grand slam by Pujols against the Rockies?
That's what I was thinking of.
Against Gomber?
There it is.
Like, that was a pinch hit
That's
spot.
a pinch hitter.
But it was like the 4th inning.
The same idea.
And it was, okay, we can put the game away now. Would you use a Golden at bat?
No.
The reason I don't like it is I don't want to add that kind of a rule of, how about this? How about we build a bench? If you want to pinch hit for somebody, why don't you build a bench that has some dudes on it?
But you get a respectable bottom of the batting
if they were
order.
that good of hitter, they would probably be a starter.
No, it's a platoon advantage. We call these platoons, Brandon.
Matt
you should
Adams
love
made
these.
a career out of it.
Fans hate them. And this means that the stars, like Juan Soto, becomes worth more in this scenario, by the way.
It's terrible.
Like your team, if a superstar becomes available in the free agent market, this would then incentivize your team to go after that guy, because in the biggest possible moments where the highest leverage spots are coming up in the game, they can be utilized in those spots guaranteed, instead of right now where it's just happen shits. All right.
I'm sorry. Doug Vaughn had a better idea than that today on TMA. Release the Hoosier in the 7th inning.
I think they should have that as like, I like the idea.
Cardinals really needed that last year.
I think you should make it more special. You have to get to the 11th inning. If a game goes to extras, you get to the 11th inning.
How often do you go to extras?
Exactly. You never know, so you got to go to the ballpark every day to
If I'm
potentially
going to the
see them release the
ballpark,
Hoosier.
I want to know that every game that I go to, at the 7th inning, they're going to release a drunken Hoosier and let the security guards chase them.
Loses the novelty of it after a while.
No
You
way
gotta
it
have
doesn't.
an 11th inning or later. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. We'll
I
talk
bet
to you
on
guys
it?
tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast
Yes.
Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. I got to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health, because it is time to unlock your inner champion. And the place to do so is at Victory Men's Health, 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. And you can check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. Whether you're dealing with some erectile dysfunction issues, you want to get started on those weight loss goals for 2025, and you want to get started now, they can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com. For me, that looks like going in for my first appointment. You could book those online. Again, victorymenshealth.com. Incredibly easy process. You click the Book Now tab at the top right corner, put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them how they can unlock your inner champion. For me, it was going over there, finding out I got a severe vitamin deficiency in a number of different areas. They were able to help me out with that, get me back on track. They unlocked my inner champion, and they can do the exact same thing for you. So whether it's weight loss goals, low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, maybe you want to hear a little bit more about their red light therapy programs, it's all available for you at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.